Check. 1, 2, 3. Hey, good morning. Very good. Nice to meet you too. Yes. Can you increase the size? The notes are not showing. It's just a slide. Yeah. Hey. I can't see the notes. Great. This is perfect. Yeah. Can you just make all the notes in all the slides this size? Awesome. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we will begin the summit in a few minutes. Please enter the ballroom area and be seated so that we can start our program. Thank you. And please kindly note that you can log in Wi-Fi without any password required. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, can I have your attention, please? For the guests who are coming, we still have the empty chairs at the first row, at the first lines of our ballroom, and please move to closer the stage and have your seat. Thank you. Thưa các anh chị thân mến, và hiện tại ở các hàng ghế ở dãy đầu phía khu vực gần sân khấu vẫn còn nhiều ghế trống. Thì anh chị nào chúng ta đến sau thì các anh chị hãy di chuyển thẳng lên phía trước và chúng ta sẽ ngồi vào những hàng ghế trống ở phía đầu các anh chị nha. Trân trọng cảm ơn. Ladies and gentlemen, we will begin the summit in a few minutes. Please enter the ballroom area and be seated. And please kindly note that you can log in Wi-Fi without any password required. Thank you so much. Kính thưa quý vị thân mến, sự kiện của chúng ta sẽ được bắt đầu trong một vài phút nữa và ban tổ chức xin mời tất cả các anh chị hãy cùng di chuyển vào bên trong khán phòng và ổn định chỗ ngồi. Và cũng xin được lưu ý với tất cả các anh chị là chúng ta có thể log in Wi-Fi, không cần password các anh chị nha. Xin trân trọng cảm ơn. Và thưa các anh chị thân mến, ở các dãy ghế, khu vực gần phía sân khấu vẫn còn những ghế trống. Thì các anh chị nào chúng ta đến sau thì chúng ta có thể di chuyển lên phía trên để chúng ta cùng ngồi vào những hàng ghế trống các anh chị nha. Trân trọng cảm ơn. Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention please? So we still have the empty chairs at the first lines of the chair. So for the people who coming later, please move to closer with the stage and fill for the empty chairs. Thank you so much. Và thưa các anh chị thân mến, ở khu vực các dãy ghế gần phía sân khấu vẫn còn nhiều những chỗ trống. Thì anh chị nào chúng ta đến sau thì chúng ta hãy cùng di chuyển lên sát phía trên để mình điền vào những cái ghế trống các anh chị nha. Và chúng ta sẽ để dành khu vực phía sau cho các anh chị đến trễ hơn nữa các anh chị nha. Trân trọng cảm ơn các anh chị. Good morning, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. A warm welcome all of you to the CEO and CMO Summit Vietnam 2022. First of all, on behalf of MMA Vietnam, I would like to say thank you for joining us and wish you all a good day. And my name is Yang. It's my pleasure to be your host. Thank you so much for having me and welcome everybody. So before we start, could I have a request for all of you? And I do hope you would do it for me. So ladies and gentlemen, I will give you 5 seconds and please turn your phone to silent mode. And thank you so much everybody for helping the organizer. So ladies and gentlemen, the CEO and CMO Summit, the one of its kind, the exclusive global series have now marked its 5th milestone in Vietnam. Today, MMA Vietnam proudly to introduce the CEO and CMO Summit Vietnam. The summit is dedicated to bringing a global mindset leader together for one-day event with our team, reinvention. And this is one of the world-class conference of our brand. And the 2022 MMA CEO and CMO Summit will focus on how businesses are reconstructing their marketing engine for flexibility in changing environment, gaining a deeper insight of their consumers through data and technology, all while managing their organization to survive in rapidly changing future. And the MMA 2022 CEO CMO Summit is an exclusive event that will include not just top CMOs, but also industry thought leaders. And you see, we have the strong agenda today, but I do hope all of you will stay with us all day and share a great mood to our speakers. And if you do agree with me, please give me a big applause to show you agree. Thank you so much. And another great news for all of us, that is our event today will be live streamed on the fanpage of MMA Vietnam, Brands Vietnam, and Advertising Vietnam, and artists too. And please do share and don't be shy to post on your Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to share about our event. And thank you so much. And ladies and gentlemen, and now are you ready? Let's say future together as CEO and CEO Summit 2022. Thank you. And to begin this program, right now we are pleased to have now the representative of MMA Vietnam and the co-chair MMA Vietnam. And please welcome on the stage Mrs. Phan Bích Tâm, Country Manager Vietnam, Myanmar, and Cambodia, and also Mr. Do Kyo, General Manager at Both Vietnam, and also the co-chair MMA Vietnam to deliver the opening speech. And please join me in welcoming them on stage by a big applause, ladies and gentlemen.
Hello. Good morning, everyone. Thank you to each and every one of you for being with us today. And I must say we are very proud to mark the 5th CEO and CMO Summit. This is one of the global series events that we are very proud to host with all of you. And today's theme about reinvention. So in today's summit agenda, our speaker and MMA Vietnam will focus how the brand can utilize the modern marketing to reinvent the future together. So we have a dozen of exciting topics and panel discussion. So we hope you will see the very exciting and a lot of very useful information to all of you today. And before we started, I must say that we would like to express our sincere appreciation to all our speakers, on our partners, and on MMA Board Vietnam member and MMA member as well. It's especially to all of you. You know, without you, we can make it as live today, you know. And one of the things I want you to not forget, that is the Smarty Awards is one of the very biggest awards in Vietnam right now, open from now on. And we can't wait to celebrate on the good works, all of you, in October, along with another biggest event coming up, that's MMA Impact. So, right now, I just want to wish all of you have a great day, and I want to leave it to the co-chair of MMA Vietnam, Mr. Douglas Kuo, the general manager from Abbott. He will introduce himself, and he will fill in the rest of our thought about this event. So welcome him, please. Over to you, DK.
Good morning, everyone. So glad to see all of you showing up for live in person. We know that the last 2 years we've done it virtually, so it's very good to see most of you in person, and thank you so much for your great turnout, right? I know everyone's super, super busy as we all head back to the office. I think the topic this year is very appropriate, right? It's about architecting the future and reinvention, right? So when we talk about reinvention, we're really talking about three broad big buckets right now, right? One is really how the consumers are changing. Two, it's especially for all the CMOs in the rooms right now, how our marketing organization have to change, right? In terms of using data, using platforms, right now, using journeys. And finally, how do we help with our people in terms of the capabilities in there internally, but also in terms of new capabilities we have to learn and help to serve our customers, right, and our consumers, right? So let me talk broadly about those three topics, right, in terms of the CEO and CMO topic today, right? So first of all, it's the consumers, right? You know, consumers have changed. Ever since COVID, it has really changed their whole consumer journeys, offline to online, right? So I think this is really great today, right? So we have all the platforms here, right? In terms of TikTok, Facebook, Google's right now. I had some previews right now in terms of YouTube's right now, the connected TV. That's very, very disruptive. You know, TikTok is also in the house in terms of that. So stay tuned for this afternoon. We also have a lot of marketing organizations here as well too, right? In terms of ROI, right? That's the key buzzword in terms of most organizations. As I am the general manager of Abbott, we're under a lot of pressure every single year to make sure that we're very, very efficient, right? So we have to do more with less, right? That's the key buzzwords, right? And the question is, how do we use ROI? How do we use data for marketing efficiencies, right? And I think the brands will help you this afternoon, right? We have Nestle, we have P&G, we have Coca-Cola. So stay tuned for that, right? So in terms of the marketing organization, and I think finally it's really about the peoples and capabilities, right? How do we make sure that we are more efficient in terms of the capabilities that we have, right? One of the things that you will hear over and over in terms of re-architecting the future, it's the importance of data, right? And also in terms of journeys right now, right? How do we put the consumers in the right proper journeys using data? So most important thing else is that we have to personalize the messaging, right? And you know that all the changes between third-party and first-party data, all of those things are really extremely relevant. So I think all the CMOs and all the CEOs, I think we will get a lot out of this summit today, okay? And I think let me also, as a co-chair, do a little plug for the for MMA, right? MMA it's much more than just the CEO and CMO summit, okay? This is what we miss most about COVID. It's about the ability to network, right? To, use this opportunity during the breakout sessions, during the coffee break, during lunch, get to know each other. Hopefully you guys, some of you come and say hi to me after during the course of the day. Networking is extremely important, right? And also within the MMA, we also have really task force, right? So you can see we have a task force that's working on modern marketing, right? So we also need a lot of contributions from the different players in Vietnam, whether it's fintech, whether are the platforms or the brands. Please contribute to the task force, right? So the richer the ecosystem, the better our marketing organization here will be in Vietnam. The other plug I would say is also capabilities, right? We have a lot of morning breakfast meetings for lunch and learns, especially for new marketeers coming into the industries, right? Would learn from the very best in terms of digital marketing? Please join us in terms of the marketing forums that we have for these breakfast settings. And also for the CEO in the room, right? I will plug, right? Abbott, we have 1,400 employees, right? And we work very closely with MMA to make sure that we have digital training for all of our employees, right, in terms of capabilities, right? So there is a great learning organization here at MMA, and we can also help the industries, right, in terms of upskilling the capabilities for our organization, not just the marketing organization, but the sales organization, the back office organizations, right? And that's the pressing need that we saw at Abbott, that everybody wants that kind of training. Right, and then finally, later this year in the fall, in Q3, we will have the Smarties Awards, right? Each year, the Smarties Awards are getting better and better because we have more submissions, right? So I talked to L'Oreal this week, hopefully that they will more submission. Nestle, Unilever, please, I encourage all of you to submit the Smarties Awards, right? Represents the very best of marketing in Vietnam. And the more submission and the more best practices that we share, the better the whole ecosystem will be here in terms of Vietnam for our marketing organizations, right? So without further ado, I know that we have a packed full agenda. Hope you enjoyed the CEO, CMO summit, and thank you so much, right, for taking time out of your schedule to join us today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Doug Lacour and Mrs. Phang Button. So, ladies and gentlemen, and now please be ready for the first keynote session today event. It will discuss the shortage of modern marketing talent today and the critical importance of curating a workplace experience as a part of attracting, retaining, and developing Gen Z talent. And with the topic, the people and talent crisis. Please together with me to welcome on the stage by a big applause, Mr. Thomas Hai, CEO Ogilvy, and Mr. Dan Van Rossum, CEO Dreamplex for the topic, the people and talent crisis. Give a big applause to welcome them on the stage.
Good morning.
Morning.
Right. Can we have...
That's
right.
us.
Excellent, excellent. Good morning. Thank you very much. And welcome to the MMA. Introductions. So I'm Soames Hines. I took over as CEO of Ogilvy in January 2020. I think it was February COVID hit. So it's been an interesting 2 years. But prior to that, I've spent about just over 40 years in this industry, mostly on the agency side. I started with Ogilvy in 1982, in the days when David Ogilvy was still in the office. But then I moved to Asia in about 1990, so I spent most of my career here, Singapore, China, Hong Kong, Vietnam twice, my second time here. But the 2.5 years that I've been here have flown by, and I have to say it's the most exciting time of my career. It feels like the early days of China when there was so much opportunity and potential in the market. So I'm delighted to be here, and I'm delighted to be working alongside some great people, including partners like Dan.
Thanks, Soames. So good morning, everyone. I'm Dan. I spent about 15 years in marketing, 10 years of which with Ogilvy, which is where I met Soames. So I started with Ogilvy in Amsterdam, which is where I'm from originally, and then moved with them to New York, Chicago, Singapore, where I had a regional role, and then finally landed in Vietnam. And then a few years ago, said goodbye to the marketing world and started focusing really on people, which is the topic that we're going to be talking about today. So I'm currently CEO of 2 companies. One is Dreamplex, which helps companies run workplaces in one of our 5 centers in Hanoi and Saigon. And then also a new company called FlexOS, which helps companies run their own offices, especially when they're moving towards hybrid work. And so within that, we're very focused on something called workplace experience, which is quite new here in Vietnam, but it's kind of bringing together people, technology, and facilities. So let's get into it.
Okay, so the people and talent crisis. We're not going to spend time this morning documenting this. It's well documented. All of us are feeling it each and every day. I know I'm spending probably just over 50% of my time looking at people and talent issues.
What's the other 50%?
25 on clients, 25 on operations, business operations. But it's taking up an increasing amount of time. And it is a very, very serious issue. I think it's probably the most fundamental issue that we have to address as an industry here in Vietnam if we're going to succeed. What we want to do today is really prompt a discussion around this. How do we solve for this crisis here in Vietnam? What do we do? And in doing so also, as Jessica and Douglas said at the beginning, what role can the MMA play in helping that? So any feedback is greatly appreciated. But without further ado, let's kick off. The assertion that we're making, and I think this is absolutely critical that we have an understanding of this, is that as the world of modern marketing becomes much more complex and much more competitive, the only survivors are going to be those companies that win the battle for talent, for capability, and for what I call cultural advantage. And I think cultural advantage is critical. Douglas talked about the need for change. Without culture, you cannot have change because culture drives change. And we'll talk a little bit about that. So we're going to focus on these three things, starting off with talent. And what we want to talk about here is some of the things that companies can do to recruit, to develop, to retain and reward. And most of us, I think, are making good progress on recruiting. There are internship programs, there are scholarship programs, there's management trainee programs, a lot of focus there. Also on development. Most companies have got lots of training going on. The best companies, I think, combine formal training with on-the-job training. Ogilvy always said that we are the teaching hospital of brands. We teach as we work on real brands. And so combining the two is critical. But where I think most of us are failing is in this area of retaining and rewarding. In our industry, we're looking at between 20 and 40% turnover at the middle management level.
Yikes.
So
that's a lot.
Yeah, so in the advertising industry, particularly difficult. But I look at some of our clients, I look at the turnover within their marketing teams. It's a real problem. So retaining and rewarding, we've been looking at that. And like a number of other companies, we've been thinking about, yes, we've got good programs for recruitment, good programs for development, some good programs for retention and reward. But where we're lacking, and what seems apparent today, is that Gen Z are looking for something quite different from their career experience and their workplace experience. And we have to understand that, because that is the future of our kind of marketing capability in the future, of these young people coming into the industry. And we were looking at moving, as the possibility that all the WPP agencies will go into a big campus. So we were looking what type of office environment, what type of workplace do we need? And we partnered with Dan at Dreamplex and with Decision Lab, who'd been doing some research to really understand Gen Z. And Dan can kind of share some of the insights that we have and the critical role that curating a workplace experience will play in retention and reward. Dan.
So very much, Soames, very much like how every good marketing campaign starts with a great insight, is very much the same for workplace experience, right? You really need to understand the person that at the end of the journey gets to experience the workplace. So as Soames just mentioned, we partnered with Decision Lab, Mr. Aske over there, who, by the way, doesn't have COVID. Yeah, I had to. And we did research with Gen Zs. We started 2 years ago. We did a refresh last year and basically tried to find out, when you're thinking about your dream job, your dream role, your dream office, what does that look like? So we have a big report, it's about 50 pages. We will not go through it today because I see the counter ticking down. But we'll share a couple of key insights and then we can send you the whole report. But basically it comes down to a couple of things where Gen Z really is quite different than the other generations, which is the job itself. So what do you do and why, your motivation, the ways of working. So how do you actually work within the company, the workplace itself, so the physical office that you spend your time in. And then there was kind of an overarching theme that we saw, which is around flexibility and choice. So starting with the job itself, this is one of the things that was quite shocking to us when we saw the data for the first time, which is that we're always thinking as company owners, I run a small company, about 40 people, we're always thinking it's all about, like compensation, benefits. But when we asked Gen Zs, why would you move to a new company? Actually, the number one reason was learning new skills. The number two reason is learning new knowledge, right? So actually the drive for learning something new, for developing yourself as a person and as a professional is actually the leading reason why someone would switch. So when you're thinking about it from an employer branding perspective, how do you want to stand out in the market? It has to start there. And then to retain talent, all of a sudden income and benefits do pop up more. But even there, you still see about 40% in self-development and professional development. So all of that becomes very important. Another question we asked was, okay, how would you like to work within that company? And some bad news here for people who like to talk face-to-face, like we're finally doing here today. Only 7.5% of Gen Zers said, yeah, let's have in-person conversation with my manager. Now it's all about instant messaging.
And why do you think that is?
So we were quite shocked by that number as well, although I did see some people in my office messaging other people while they're sitting next to each other and having whole conversations over Teams or Slack. Sounds like some in the audience also have seen that behavior. So we asked some follow-up questions, and basically what was said is that they've grown up with mobile, they've grown up with messaging tools. So for them to have an in-person, real-time conversation is actually very traumatic, because you ask me a question, I have to respond on the spot. I don't have time to think and then reply in a really smart way later. So that's why there's a big prevalence for instant messaging.
And that raises a question. Although it's important to understand what Gen Z want, as a parent of a Gen Z myself, isn't always what's best for them. So we have to balance their needs with what we think is appropriate for social development and you know, growing up to be balanced human beings.
Absolutely. There's still some paternalistic stuff there, where you also have to know what's good for them, right? So speaking of that sort of interaction, right? Another way that we asked, you know, Gen Z about their ways of working, this is about feedback. So we asked them, if you think about your relationship with your manager and getting feedback, like Soam said, a lot of learning happens on the job. How often do you want that feedback? So you can see that in total, 95% of Gen Z wants feedback at least once a month, and 85% wants it more than once a week. So you really can see that the relationship with the manager and the direct working relationship you have becomes more and more important. And then to the very final point about the physical office itself, right? So typically when people think about designing offices for Gen Z, they think about something very techy, a lot of screens, a lot of shiny, plasticky furniture. But actually, when you ask Gen Z themselves, what kind of office do you want to be in? Again, this is data from Vietnamese Gen Z, delivered by ASCE and Decision Lab. Number one is actually comfortable. They want to go to a place where they feel like they can work comfortably, doing focused work or working with colleagues. So that's really the number one. But then also, if you see like the percentages for all the other ones, it's actually a lot of demands that Gen Z has for their office. So there really are a lot of changes. And then there was this one big overarching theme around, you know, flexibility and choice, right? So just a quick show of hands. Anyone here already doing hybrid work or flexible work for their teams? Oh, okay, that's a good amount, yeah. So definitely Gen Z, as they always have done, even us millennials, we're always asking, hey, can I work from home sometimes because I went to a big party last night? And I mean, because I can focus better at home, right? We've always asked for it. We never really got it from companies, but now we see more that is a big demand. But it doesn't mean that there's no role for the office anymore, right? Gen Zs also say, but when I'm at home, my biggest problem is I get distracted. I don't have the right facilities, the right amenities. I need more discipline. I cannot self-discipline myself, right? I know what's good for me, but I cannot do it. So that's still there. So there's still some reasons to draw people in. And that really leads me to the final point, which is that when we're thinking about flexible work, when we're thinking about hybrid work, new ways of working, we need to start become very intentional about reasons when and why Gen Zs, millennials, all of us still come to the office. So Fast Company called that radical intentionality. And I saw a quote in an article in the Washington Post from Brian Chesky, the CEO of Airbnb, who said, we're trying to be super intentional. So we do expect people, they're a fully remote company now, to come together at least 1 week per quarter. But that 1 week is not going to be just us sitting in a room together doing meetings. That is going to be a really meaningful week with really meaningful interactions. And it's the kind of experience that we then deliver that we can use to build trust and connection and then do the important collaborative work. So it's a very different way of approaching the workplace. Now, one of the things that we saw in the research is that not just Gen Zers, but everyone probably wants to learn, develop new skills, develop themselves as a person, as a professional. So Soames would be really interesting to hear about how you're building capability. Since we can keep talking about work and people, but it's a marketing conference. So how do we grow the next generation of marketing talent?
Well, I think there are so many things that are, there's really kind of three major themes that underpin this, and capability building is one of them. Given the turnover, I was talking to someone earlier today, saying teams of marketeers moving from one company to another in Vietnam, you lose all your know-how. So you have to, as a company, develop proprietary marketing know-how, marketing capability, because you will always have that turnover. Not many companies are doing this very well. Some do it superbly. And I'll talk a little bit about some of those companies in a moment. But the reason this is so critical is because, and it isn't because, you know, the world of modern marketing has changed and there's, you know, more channels, more platforms, more content, etc. It's because the fundamental kind of rules of marketing have been disproven. Advances in neuroscience, advances in behavioral science, and big data in particular are giving us insights that are challenging a lot of the old conventions. I grew up in the 80s, you know, with Kotler, with these classic, you know, USPs, point of parity, point of difference, absolute nonsense. And it's been proven time and time again through the analysis that's been done, and particularly books like these. Can I just see a show of hands? How many people have read more than 3 of these books? Excellent. One company I admire enormously, you won't even get an interview if you haven't read at least 3 of these. And I would urge you, if you've not, the first 3 are compulsory reading. But a lot of the things I grew up being taught have just been proven to be untrue. But actually, we've known the truth about these things for a long time. We've just forgotten it. We've been distracted. This debate we had in the 80s, I remember trying to convince clients that consumers didn't think rationally. They thought emotionally, and we had to be more emotional. Nonsense. Consumer behavior is driven not by reason or emotion. It's driven by instinct and intuition, as this illustrates. No sound, please.
Can you hum some elevator music?
Can we have sound?
One other member of us.
Start again.
The gentleman in the elevator now is a candid star. These folks who are entering, the man with a white shirt, the lady with a trench coat, and subsequently one other member of our staff will face the rear. And you'll see how this man in the trench coat tries to maintain his individuality, but little by little, he looks at his watch, but he's really making an excuse for turning just a little bit more.
Got the idea. You got the idea. And as I was saying a moment ago, advanced big data particularly first-party data, is dispelling a load of myths about consumer behavior. We're now seeing hard evidence as to how consumers really respond. Behavioral science in particular. Bit of a shout out for Nudge Stock. I know a lot of you will be watching this, but it starts today, so please have a look at that. That will help us enormously. Talked about companies that are building proprietary marketing capability. I think probably the leading company globally at this is Yum Brands, the owners of KFC, Pizza Hut, Taco Bell. And this is probably the best book that any youngster should be reading. Sets out the principles really that define successful marketing today, built around this idea of being relevant, being easy, and being distinctive. And it's a very easy read. So please, I would urge all of you to read that book. We at Ogilvy, we have our similar kind of way. We call it MAD. MAD meaning meaningful, which is kind of meaning beyond relevance. A being accessible. That's the Byron Sharp's thinking about mental and physical availability. Lastly, being distinctive, and that's about being unexpected but unmistakably your brand. And it's important that companies really develop this proprietary kind of know-how. Lastly, cultural advantage. And by cultural advantage, what I'm really talking about is cultural and behavioral advantage. because culture, building a winning culture, is what will drive change in your organization. And the inability to change is the biggest challenge that we're facing. And without a proper culture, you're not going to be able to change as much as you need to. In the 4 decades that I've worked in the industry, from the 80s, I've seen periods of change, from when media left agencies to the first dot-com boom to where we are today. The rate of change now it's on steroids. And so if you're not the sort of person that can thrive in a changing environment, you shouldn't be in marketing. So culture is critical.
There's one thing that, I'm glad we're getting into this, because there's one thing in the previous section that you mentioned about being distinctive. I think culture is really all about like who you are and who you're not just as much, right? And then being able to propagate it into your entire organization. So in our field, talking to a lot of chief people officers, they've all seen this note from Elon Musk who said, you have to come into the office a minimum 40 hours per week. I was like, wait, minimum 40 hours per week? That seems like a pretty much like a full-time day. If you contrast that with someone like Airbnb who's saying we're remote first and you work flexibly as long as we see you 1 week per month, that's very different. But I think what you're seeing there is he sets the tone for his culture and someone else doesn't endure that their way. And therefore you're able to attract the kind of people that say, yeah, that's my tribe. That's where I belong. So I'm very curious how you guys do that now at Ogilvy, because I used to work at Ogilvy in New York and a couple of markets. And I know the sense of culture was always very strong. So how are you doing it now since the landscape has changed so much?
Well, we look at it in 4 ways: vision, beliefs, values, and then the actions that you take. And with vision, I see a lot of company visions that are not meaningful enough, particularly for Gen Z, but above
made
all,
up in a boardroom, maybe?
Yeah.
Brainstormed?
But not participative, and that's the critical thing. Dr. Jordan Peterson, a controversial character, but one thing I think he got right is this idea that the pursuit of happiness is a fairly hollow pursuit, that meaning is what's important. And the only way you can have meaning is by taking on difficult responsibility. If you think about the times in your life when you felt happy, you felt you have meaning and purpose, it's when you've taken on difficult responsibility and you've succeeded, whether it be a challenging job, getting married, having a child. Taking on responsibility is critical. So a vision has to be participative. Everybody in the organization has to own their part of that plan and take responsibility for it. So have you got a vision that is participative and meaningful? When it comes to beliefs, these are very important because they drive our behaviors. They shape our mindset. You could have a number of beliefs. A useful kind of 4 buckets for you would be to think about your beliefs in relation to your people, your company, your customers, your industry, and your product. And at Ogilvy, we used David Ogilvy. We went back to our founder to see what beliefs would really help us in those 4 buckets.
See this Russian doll of mine? It's my favorite doll. It contains the secret of success in advertising management, agency management. It's a big one on the outside. I'm going to undo it. Inside there's a smaller one, and then a smaller one. We get down, smaller, and smaller, and smaller, and smaller. This is a little dwarf doll. And inside, there's a message. And I'm going to read it to you. Listen. If each of us has someone smaller than we are, we shall become a company of dwarfs. But if each of us has someone bigger than we are, we shall become a company of giants.
Those inspired the beliefs that we have in relation to our people, company, clients, industry, and work. And each of those is printed on the back of one of these Russian dolls that you see. When it comes to when it comes to values, often I see a list of, very positive words, but it's just as important in your organization that you say what you stand against.
The people who contribute most in our business have a marvelous quality of enthusiasm, gusto, infectious gusto. Are you a hard worker? There's a saying in Scotland that hard work never killed a man. I can't stand lazy people. If you work twice as hard as the person in the next office, you will achieve 5 times as much and climb the ladder like a bat out of hell. I also hate toadies. People who suck up to their bosses and bully people at lower levels. I don't like office politicians or liars. I don't like poachers or crybabies or buck passers. I admire people with guts under pressure, resilience in adversity, imagination, curiosity, grace, human kindness, and intellectual honesty. I love people who make me laugh.
Very clear.
Very clear.
Very clear.
So at Ogilvy, I think we're very clear about what our beliefs are, what our values are. And lastly, just to end, you then have to take actions to identify, recognize, celebrate, and reward those behaviors, that mindset that you're trying to encourage as an organization. So recognition culture is critical. Jan will talk later on today in the conference about recognition culture. And we have, we use the Russian dolls as awards. We have our Boomerang Award for those people that return to Ogilvy. So all of these things, making sure that you're living and breathing culture. So there we have it. If we're going to survive, we've really got to focus on these three things: talent, capability, and above all, building cultural advantage. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your sharing, Mr. Thomas Heiss and Mr. Dan. And ladies and gentlemen, the next speakers would like to share you about the topic, tap the biggest streaming audience in Vietnam, how brands differentiate with YouTube connected TV. And please, together with me, give a big applause to welcome on stage our next speaker, Mr. Anil Tirunagari, Vietnam country list YouTube.
Awesome. Imagine 100 million people, right? In your minds. Imagine 100 million people. The question is, how many years does it take to add 100 million users, which is like the entire population of Vietnam, to the internet in Southeast Asia? Can anyone answer? How many years do you think it took to add 100 million users? Come on, let's make it a little chatty, conversational. 10 years, 3 months, big spectrum. So just to put this in context, I was here in 2014, October, launching YouTube in Vietnam in the Hard Rock Cafe. Anyone in the crowd at that time? Okay, I can see a few hands going up. Yeah, Hard Rock Cafe. It was an awesome party. But yeah, so then again in 2019, October, I was here in the same stage presenting YouTube Works. So that kind of was, from 2015 to 2019, a good 4 years. And so you're basically thinking of adding 100 million users in 4 years. And then something happened, right? 2020, the pandemic broke out. It dissolved the digital divide. What took 4 years to add 100 million users to the internet? In just less than 18 months, we added 80 million internet users to Southeast Asia, taking the internet penetration to 75%, according to the Economy Report 2021 by Google, Temasek, and Bain & Company. Now, that's a massive, shift. It's a big shift that probably happens once in 10 years. When I came to Singapore from India in 2010, a similar shift was happening. Digital video was shifting from desktops and laptops to smartphones, to the small screen, right? And before my eyes, the entire population started consuming streaming content onto their smart devices. And that was once in a decade shift. And again, we are seeing such a shift happening now. Friends, my name is Anil. I head the YouTube business in Vietnam. Some of you know me as the YouTube guy. As I mentioned, it's been 2.5 years. in 2019 when I came here and presented. Truly is an honor to be again here talking to you about, again, a similar big shift. Right? So we are talking about this huge shift that is happening when more and more people are consuming digital video on their big screens. It's almost like a full circle. What happened from laptops to desktops to mobile phones, now it's coming back again to the living room on their big screen. And over the next few minutes, I'm going to present some data that we found are to be killer facts. And this data then further led us to 4 big arguments, right? And those 4 big arguments, we spent the last 6 months testing and experimenting with some big brands in Vietnam. And we found 4 things that I want to share with you today. So before that, let me show you this data. For some amazing reason, Vietnam is the most penetrated smart TV market in the region. It could be due to different reasons. It could be due to one, a giant global smart TV manufacturing hub by Samsung is in town. It could be that, Vietnam is so entrepreneurial that every single bar, coffee shop that you walked into is wired and wireless, and you're accessing high bandwidth internet. It also could be the incredible inventiveness and creativity of the community here. The content that is uploaded to the internet is instantaneous. There's no lag between what streams on a linear TV screen and then what follows up on the internet. In other markets, you see a big lag, sometimes even 60 days. But in Vietnam, it's instantly accessible. And that makes Vietnam one of the most digitally savvy, the most smart TV penetrated market in the region of Southeast Asia. And this is not just an urban phenomenon, right? The smart TV penetration is across both urban as well as rural. And we're seeing this incredible shift playing out on YouTube in Vietnam. If you look today, 25% of the entire population is already streaming YouTube on their giant screens, in their living rooms, in their bedrooms. I just met one friend from who used to work in Sendo just before this. He said, I have 3 TVs at my home, and I'm watching movies on Netflix, and then I'm watching a bunch of stuff on YouTube. I watch all kinds of content, music, all my favorite entertainment shows. And this is true for all of us here, I think. So you're looking at the most highly penetrated smart TV market in the region. You're looking at a quarter of the entire population streaming YouTube on their CTVs. That's a huge scale for brands to now start thinking about, how can I really now engage with this immersed audience in a very different way, leveraging all the data journeys that Doug was talking about earlier. How can I personalize my message? Now I have this incredible digital interactivity at my disposal. How am I going to make this a deeper, immersive experience for my consumers? And what we are seeing is across the day, when people are streaming their favorite content on their screens, whether it be mobile, whether it be desktop, whether it be TV, we found out that between 5 p.m. and 11 p.m., there is this delta streaming audience that is watching YouTube on their TV screens. And if you contrast it with the personal experience you have watching digital video on your smartphones, what we found out is that as you watch TV content, people are not watching it alone. They're watching it with their families. They're watching it with their friends in different rooms. So we find this entire co-viewing audience as a big extra audience that has started streaming in. So how can brands leverage this additional streaming audience that they have never been able to access before? Now, we've talked about the scale and breadth of the CTV opportunity, right? It's not just about how wide your audience, how broad it is, but also you must consider how deep the engagement is. We found a staggering data point. According to our internal data in December 2021, people are streaming YouTube on their connected TVs for not an hour, not 2 hours, a full 3.5 hours watching 30 videos across their favorite content verticals. And we also found out that in contrast to the mobile phone or the desktop, people's average view on connected TVs is 90% longer than the view on smartphone or desktop. Now, so you have scale, the reach of 25 million people logging into their TVs and watching YouTube, but you now also have the depth of they watching for 3.5 hours and dozens of videos every day. And all this is resulting in an explosion of watch time. Because I work as the YouTube lead for Vietnam, and we're seeing this incredible explosion in Vietnam, I also started looking at data from other markets. Vietnam is a global leader when it comes to YouTube watch time on CTVs. We are ahead of even markets like US and UK in terms of the percentage of time spent watching YouTube on TV versus watching it on mobile screens or desktop or mobile. That is a staggering figure. And it also gives us, brands and marketers here, the unique opportunity to start thinking, how can we use this to drive growth? So if you take variety shows, year over year, we saw a 200% increase in watch time on the connected TV screens. Similarly, if you look at football, if you look at comedy shows, if you look at cooking shows, all of this content has exploded. We actually take a look at all the creators that have, huge communities on YouTube. Today, there are about 950 creators in YouTube who have more than 1 million subscribers. When I actually look at the leaderboard, already the top 100 of these channels have more watch time happening on connected TVs compared to a smartphone. So this is definitely a huge shift, right? And I'd like you to pause for a second there. With this unparalleled paradigm shift, with Vietnam being the #1 smart TV penetrated market, with being the YouTube CTV largest market in the world, what can you do? And this is where we started forming some hypotheses about how brands can leverage this paradigm shift in order to drive brand growth. And we learned 4 things, and I want to share with them, with all of you. So the first one is, can brands reach new streaming audiences never reached before through YouTube CTV? Right? We all know there are streaming audiences that are subscription-based, there are streaming services that are advertising-based. So even while people are watching subscription-based video on demand, as brands, you're not really able to reach them. But on advertising-supported platforms like YouTube, you're now able to tap into these new streaming audiences. So we tested the reach and efficiency of YouTube CTV with multiple brands like Nestle, Suntory Pepsi, Ecopharma, and numerous other brands in the last 6 months. Our evidence across every single of these brands, and in this case, we are watching Nestle Milo on the screen, we were able to add, YouTube CTV added 7% incremental reach on top of linear TV. Now, that's an amazing number given that before 2 years, this whole phenomenon was just not there. Just in 2 years, this entire consumer shift resulted in a national brand like Milo being able to target their audience of female 25 to 44 and driving an incremental reach of 7%. So I know that Nestle is in the room. Thanks a lot for being our partner. We're really looking forward to driving more and more of this. So the second hypothesis was, and to Doug's point here, given the headwinds of COVID, broken supply chains, every marketer's top of mind is, how do I drive profitability? How do I select channels that drive high ROI for me? So the game of today's current scenario is that how can we be more efficient? So can YouTube CTV do this efficiently? Can we drive this incremental reach efficiently? And our evidence actually leads us to believe that not just in this case, but across the multiple tests that we ran, our meta findings actually suggest that YouTube CTV drives a lower cost per user reached. So in Nestle's case, we were able to do it at minus 22% lower cost compared to linear TV. So not only are we driving incremental reach, ladies and gentlemen, we are also doing it at a super efficient price point. The third hypothesis is, okay, we have hit reach, incremental reach. We've actually also hit it at an efficient price point, but is this effective? Right? And especially for advertisers in the room who are new to connected TV. They're not really big advertisers on TV, but they are huge fans of digital first approach. Does YouTube CTV actually drive effectiveness? So we went a little beyond the 7 studies or experiments that we ran in Vietnam. Right? We need a wider data point here. So across the globe, we ran 5,000 dedicated CTV campaigns. In addition to the regular YouTube campaign that you would run, we found that this combination of a separate dedicated CTV campaign, along with your regular cross-device YouTube campaign, resulted in 16% incremental lift in your recall and awareness. That's a compelling piece of data, and also at 4% less cost per lifted user. And every single study that we ran in the last 6 months, right here in Vietnam, we were able to actually witness the same data of incremental brand lift, especially in the upper funnel of awareness and ad recall. So that takes us to the last argument. We've talked a lot about YouTube. We talked a lot about YouTube CTV, but there are streaming audiences outside of YouTube. So is there an opportunity for brands to actually unify all the streaming audiences in Vietnam and go beyond YouTube, right? And here's where we partnered again, as I mentioned, in this case, Suntory Pepsi wanted to basically see, okay, is there a single view of all the streaming audiences in Vietnam that I can actually compare both across connected TVs and across other cross devices, like, for example, mobile and desktop, and all my digital buys? Can I actually see what is the reach that I'm able to drive, and am I able to do this at a efficient point? Amazingly so, using Display and Video 360 platform, or in short, DV360, Suntory Pepsi was able to drive minus 22% cost per reach used across CTV and non-CTV audiences using the DV360 platform. So they were able to actually fast track all the deals across FPT, Beyond, and other OTT, third-party OTT players, and along with YouTube, they were able to consolidate that into one single campaign, manage their frequencies across all these OTT players to drive a media unification strategy. And as I mentioned, the results were phenomenal, right? Not only did they see a minus 12% reduction in cost, they were also able to add 27% increase in their incremental reach to their 18 to 44 audience. So what we were able to actually prove through extensive tests in the last 6 months is that your opportunity with connected TV today is an incredible opportunity for you to drive incremental reach, efficient reach, effective reach, as well as unified reach going beyond YouTube. So what do we have for you over the next 3 months? We would love you to set up your own experiment with us. We are happy to invest in you. We would love to have you come and say that, hey, Anil, hey, Google, we want to actually set up a dedicated CTV campaign just to see for our business if we're able to drive the same evidence that you have just now shown. So the next 3 months, feel free to partner with us. We're happy to invest, as I mentioned, in helping you drive your brand growth with this fantastic once-in-a-decade opportunity, which is the connected TV experience. Thank you very much. With that, I hand it over back to MMA.
Thank you so much for your sharing, Mr. Anil Tirunagari. So I think your presentations is the essence. So, all right, everybody, as make you already know about the quality of the products or your services are no longer the only winning factor, especially when the market is filled with alternative choices and the price diversities. To gain the competitive foundation, we can solve reliance on customer needs, but also their holistic experience. And this is also exactly what many the other top brands are seriously looking into. And now to dip into the topics, the first panel discussion of our event today with the topics, customer experience is really the core marketing strategy of modern marketers. And right now, I would like to introduce you the panelists and also the moderator who joined us at the first panel discussion. About the panelists, Mrs. Thảo Vũ, Head of Marketing Baemin, Mr. Nguyễn Vũ Anh, CEO Coc Coc, Mr. Huỳnh Lâm Hồ, co-founder and CEO Haravan, Mr. Quốc Phang, Senior Brand Manager Vietnam Haircare P&G, and our moderator, Mrs. Ka Dinh, CEO of VietGuys Mobile Marketing Solutions. And please remember, all of you can send or can put questions to the panelists via Slido, and just take a look on screen to log in. You just scan the QR code on the screen to log in and put a question to our panelists. And please, together, we put your hand to give a big applause to welcome on stage the panelists and the moderator of the first panel discussions, ladies and gentlemen. Mrs. Thảo Vũ, Mr. Nguyễn Vũ Anh, Mr. Huỳnh Lâm Hồ, Mr. Quốc Phang, and the moderator, Mrs. Ka Dinh. Is turn on ready? Mở rồi đấy chị.
Good morning, everyone, and glad to see all of you here back with the CEO and CMO Summit. My name is Ka Dinh, CEO of VietGuys, and it's my pleasure to be here to be the moderator of our first panel discussion with the topic, very hot topic. CX stands for customer experience. Is it a core of marketing strategy of modern marketers? And before we starting, I would like to introduce one of our esteemed guests who will be sharing really interesting information with us later on. Okay, Mr. Vũ Anh, CEO from Coc Coc, Ms. Thảo Nguyễn, Head of Marketing of Baemin, Mr. Huỳnh Lâm Ho, Founder and CEO of Haravan, and Mr. Paul Phang, Wook Phang, Senior Brand Manager of P&G. So please say something hi to the audience. Can you see it clearly on the stage? All right. So when we think about a customer experience, I think it's very familiar terms that all of us often discuss recently, and especially when we are in the age of very catalytic times when customers make decisions not just only based on product features or product functions, but based on the total feelings that they have towards a particular brand. So that it is very important that all of the brands need to understand very carefully, because all of the end user, they want to be understood, they want to be cared, and they want to get the right message at the right time in the right manner. So I think in such of that scenario, I would like to ask a question from Mr. Vũ Anh first. Is that in order how to get the end user get connected and align with the brands, so how can we able to optimize our customer experience tactics in order to tailor the needs of the end users? And I also want you to share some case study about Coc Coc, because I know that Coc Coc has a very big community on Facebook with the user support, and everyone loves Coc Coc can go there and then ask the questions to tackle all the complaints or the questions about that. So Mr. Vũ Anh, can you share with the audience something about that? Yeah.
Sure. So, I mean, we're a technology company, and I think Doc mentioned that, today we have a lot of data about users. You want to personalize the user experience, but I think because we're Coc Coc, we're focusing on Vietnam, and we are in Vietnam. Also try to differentiate, with the high touch kind of approach. So we have this kind of community on Facebook, and we also have local user support team. Right? And their goal is going to be to create a connection with users. And I can give, kind of very specific examples. So the goal of this team actually, is not the kind of traditional user support where you want them to solve issues as quickly as possible, as fast as possible. Right? We want them to connect with users and create engagement. So one example that we have, so we had one user from this small company, so they contacted us and they said, yeah, we have a problem with our browser. Some of the websites, we cannot see the pictures, right? But actually the problem was not just for Coc Coc browser, it was also for all the browsers. So we started to investigate, and at the end, what we discovered is the problem was not with any browser, right? But was with the old version of Windows. So, and we helped them to upgrade Windows, which their boss didn't want to do until then, and then that managed to solve their problem. I think another kind of example is a bit more funny is that, so as you may know, Coc Coc helped users download videos, right? And so we had a users contact Coc Coc and they couldn't download a video. But initially they wouldn't share which website, was the video from. And then after, I think, basically one day and back and forth, they said, yeah, I'm trying to download a video from a porn website, right? And then, so we started to engage, and ultimately, these particular users started to discuss with our user support about porn website, right? So it's very funny, but until this day, they still discuss about other topics. I think the idea here is that you can use a lot of technology, personalize the customer experience, use a lot of data, but at the end, also think about how to bring the human touch and then create a connection with users.
Well, thank you for your sharing. So we understand that the tactics of Coc Coc has been implemented, And the last word you share, I think, is about human touch. And I found that it's very interesting because you know that nowadays we understand what good customer experience is, but how to implement it and how bring it into practice and how bring all that aspiration to life is another story. Recently, we heard a lot about the term technology. So technology enabled customer experience. But I also wonder, is it all of the game? Is there any other rational reason behind that? And I do think about the culture, the insights, the people, the process, which in our first keynote mentioned about that. So this question is the next question I will use for Ms. Thảo and Mr. Lam Ho to tackle these questions about culture and about the process and people. What is the actual the role of these factors in determining the sustainable and successful customer experience strategy? So please allow me to share something in Vietnamese because this session is more very something we share very insightful. So please allow our guest speaker to share something in Vietnamese so they can easily and get more convenient to share. Okay.
Hello. Thank you for allowing me to speak by Vietnamese. So it's better for me to share my experience. Sorry about that. Quay lại từ Haravan, tôi nghĩ là về cái chuyện mà trải nghiệm khách hàng á, khách hàng có thể tìm đến công ty mình bất cứ cái nơi nào, từ online cho tới offline và bất cứ cái tình huống nào. Thì tôi nghĩ làm sao văn hóa con người họ cảm nhận được cái việc này và bản thân họ đóng một vai trò rất là quan trọng trong cái việc là tự họ có thể chủ động để giải quyết một số cái vấn đề mà khi mà nó không nằm trong cái quy trình của một tổ chức về cái chuyện mà trải nghiệm cũng như là về ứng dụng công nghệ như thế nào. Thì bản thân cá nhân Hồ thì nhìn thấy là văn hóa là một cái điều mà làm sao mọi người đều sở hữu nó. Và nếu mà chỉ nói về văn hóa không á, thì nó cũng chưa có đủ. Và từng con người trong tổ chức á, làm sao họ hiểu được việc này. Như nãy có một cái thuyết trình của bên một speaker đã chia sẻ về việc đó. Mà nghĩ có một điểm còn nó quan trọng hơn nữa là khi mà chúng ta nói về văn hóa, chúng ta nói về con người, chúng ta có bao giờ quan tâm tới cái KPI đó nó drive cái mọi người theo một cái văn hóa mà tổ chức chúng ta cũng đang kỳ vọng hay không. Thì bản thân tôi nghĩ là chúng ta có thể ứng dụng công nghệ, chúng ta có thể hiểu được khách hàng, chúng ta có thể xây được quy trình, chúng ta có thể learning rất là nhiều cái công nghệ. Nhưng mà nếu như từng cái con người trong tổ chức không xem cái này là một cái điều quan trọng và cái tổ chức họ không xem đây là một cái điều mà một cái có thể gọi là một cái trụ cột rất là quan trọng để tổ chức có thể scale up, có thể tiến到cái giai đoạn mà mở rộng hơn cái giai đoạn hiện tại. Thì không có nó thì tôi nghĩ nó cũng không đi tới đâu. Và quay lại cái KPI á, nó là một cái việc mà mọi người sẽ thấy là trong một tổ chức á, thường sẽ có nhiều cái bộ phận và mỗi người có thể có một cái trách nhiệm công việc của mình. Nhưng mà chúng ta có bao giờ nhìn một cái KPI nào nó liên quan mà chúng ta chọn KPI đó là cái KPI mà nó đi cùng với văn hóa hay không? Không, cái ví dụ trong tổ chức của Haravan có một cái đội gọi là đội mà sau bán hàng á, thường after sales mọi người sẽ nhìn là nếu như chúng ta có thể có chọn một trong hai KPI nào quan trọng trong đội after sales. Ở after sales chúng ta có thể chọn một cái KPI là revenue. Thì lúc đó toàn bộ cái team mà after sales, cho dù chúng ta nói về là văn hóa chúng ta là customer first, trải nghiệm của khách hàng là điều quan trọng nhất. Nhưng mà nếu như cái KPI đó nó sáp cái đội đó, mọi thứ chỉ nhìn về revenue không á, thì nó không có thể nào nó kéo cái con người họ chạy theo văn hóa nó được. Thì và trong cái việc mà Haravan làm á, thì Haravan nói là ok, như vậy thì cái văn hóa, một cái KPI nào nó quyết định cái việc này thì mình chọn là KPI liên quan tới retention của khách hàng. Thì nó quan trọng hơn tất cả mọi thứ. Tại cái việc đó cả một cái đội after sale phải làm rất là nhiều cái công việc, làm sao để khách hàng có thể sở hữu được giá trị của sản phẩm khách hàng, làm sao họ success, làm sao họ thành công. Thì cái việc mà họ ở lại với tổ chức, ở lại với cái dịch vụ của mình chắc chắn là điều hiển nhiên. Và cái việc đó chắc chắn sẽ drive cái revenue về cho các bạn. Thì chọn xây dựng văn hóa, quy trình và cái KPI là cái yếu tố cũng rất là quan trọng trong quyết định, và cái việc đó nó sẽ tác động đến cái trải nghiệm của khách hàng. Và cái đội đó sẽ là cái đội mà liên tục tự suy nghĩ và tối ưu tạo ra những cái trải nghiệm mới cho khách hàng, chứ không phải là một cái team nào phụ trách về trải nghiệm khách hàng mà ngồi nghĩ ra tất cả hoạt động trong cái tổ chức, tất cả điểm chạm của khách hàng được. Thì đó là cái việc mà từ phía Haravan xem cái việc đó là một cái trụ cột rất là quan trọng để tổ chức có thể đạt được một cái sự kỳ vọng trải nghiệm tốt hơn từ khách hàng. Xin cảm ơn.
Cảm ơn anh Hồ. Thank you, Mr. Lam Ho. Okay, so talking about KPI. So I want to have one more question to ask deeper and dig into your problem. So do you apply that same KPI retention to all the other departments instead of just the after sales department? And is it, aligned to the core values and the whole organizational culture of Haravan, or just only one department? And how you control it?
Ngoài cái đội after sale á, thực ra khi mà khách hàng tới cái đội after sale là một cái đội gần như là cái việc đã hồi đã chia sẻ là có một cái team cũng khá là quan trọng. Ngoài cái chuyện mà customer service, customer success nó là điều hiển nhiên của các bạn. Haravan có một cái đội gọi là đội onboarding. Mình nghĩ cái việc này chắc là họ learning được rất là nhiều khi mà làm việc với lại Google. Google có ba cái bộ phận rất là quan trọng, trong đó một cái bộ phận gọi là onboarding service cũng rất là quan trọng. Bộ phận này á, làm sao cùng với khách hàng, làm sao cùng với khách hàng trong 90 ngày đầu, đặc biệt là 30 ngày đến cái đoạn 30 ngày và đến 90 ngày. Đây là cái đoạn rất là quan trọng để cho khách hàng có thể nhận được những cái giá trị về sản phẩm của chúng ta, của Haravan. Thì đối tượng mà Haravan phục vụ khách hàng á, phần lớn là SME. Mọi người SME thì họ rất là bận rộn và họ không có nhiều cái nguồn lực trong tổ chức của họ để có thể learning về sản phẩm, có thể học về sản phẩm và dịch vụ. Và nếu như chúng ta áp dụng cái việc đó như những cái văn hóa phương Tây á, hoặc là những cái nước khác, hoặc là những nước phát triển, hoặc là như là chúng ta tư duy cho những cái brand hay là những cái medium size to large, thì Haravan sẽ có vấn đề rất lớn là khách hàng không đón nhận được cái giá trị sản phẩm của Haravan, thì dẫn tới cái việc là chắc chắn cái đoạn phía sau nó trở thành vô nghĩa. Tại khách hàng không thể nào sử dụng sản phẩm dịch vụ của mình, khách hàng không thể nào khai thác cái giá trị của sản phẩm của Haravan để có thể làm tốt hơn cái business của họ. Thì cái đội onboarding service cũng là một cái bộ phận rất là quan trọng trong cái việc mà hướng tới cái trải nghiệm của khách hàng, làm sao khách hàng khai thác được sản phẩm dịch vụ. Có cái đội thứ ba nữa là đội liên quan tới marketing. Marketing á, thì ngoài những cái hoạt động mà outbound, đó là một cái tổ chức điều hiển nhiên phải làm, thì có cái đội inbound rất là quan trọng, và thậm chí là đội event. Những cái hoạt động mà đội inbound hay là đội event làm á, đều hướng tới những cái giá trị, những cái gì mà kinh nghiệm từ cái việc mà mình learning được, mình chia sẻ lại, làm sao kết nối được cộng đồng cùng chia sẻ những cái giá trị mà cái knowledge, cái tri thức đó cho những nhà kinh doanh. Thì tất cả mọi thứ đều hướng về một cái giá trị của khách hàng. Và ở Haravan cũng có một cái core value rất là quan trọng, mà nó nằm trong cái để xây dựng lên được cái văn hóa cũng như là nó đóng góp vào cái mission của tổ chức. Thì có một cái core value Haravan thường xuyên chọn trong khách hàng. Khi mà ghi chữ khách hàng, Haravan định nghĩa khách hàng là như thế nào? Trong cái core value đó là lợi ích và trải nghiệm của khách hàng là thước đo cho sự thành công của Haravan. Thì cái việc đó nó mô tả rất rõ những gì mình phải làm, và nó là một cái việc mà nó tồn tại cho từng con người trong tổ chức. Thì đó là cái từ cái phía Haravan như vậy.
Yeah, cảm ơn anh. To sum up his sharing, it's very I think it's very interesting quote that the benefits and the customer success are the key things that lay the foundation success for Haravan. Yeah. Okay, so we will ask the very only and beautiful lady on the stage, Miss Thảo. So besides technology, is there any factors that you think that might contribute to the successful sales strategy? For example, insights or something like that.
Yeah. So I think customer experience is a very big topic, especially for businesses like us. So Baemin, we do food delivery. And when you think about it, it's like both online and offline. So we have really, really like a lot of touch points, and all the touch points in which we interact with customer in this whole multiverse is a customer experience, right? So I think the first factor is usually strategy, because that's very important for us. So when you have a lot of things to do, a lot of things to optimize, what's really important for you to do? Because if we optimize everything, every touch point, it's probably impossible for us. So even like with our situation, so we are the underdog. So most of the time, actually, we play the catch-up games. So we have to choose the customer experience very wisely. So we used to categorize the customer experience. So some of the touch point has to be really on par. So this is the expectation of the market. If you want to play in that market, this is what you have to do. On the other hand, we have some touch points or some characteristic or some experiences in which we call it uniquely good. So that's something that we want to do that is really different and stay apart from others. And we realize that once we choose that something we want to be different, usually it comes as a cluster of experiences. So most of the mistake that we've made is that we done it halfway. For example, there are 10 touch points in order to complete the customer experience. Even if we do 8, do 9, really, really great. But we like one thing that really complete the experience, then that doesn't do it. So our lessons out is once we've chosen a certain area of customer experience, which has to do with narrowing down the target audience, we usually go all in and really, really try our best to fulfill that experience for users. For example, for Baemin, our target audience is the urban young office workers. So people who start working from 20 to 30. What they are looking for is really convenience. And for us, delivering a customer experience that is the top convenience of the market, having a services that really understand that market segment is very important for us. What we also learned is that for the young audience, or like half the Gen Z of today, like other speakers presented, so they don't buy just like a brand because of the functional benefit, because of the emotional benefit, but more than that, they want to buy a culture that they can associate themselves with. So if you want to be something that people use, you should represent that culture. And you should behave like externally and internally similar to that target audience. So that's how we really believe. So when we do something, even marketing, even like an ad, we usually ask ourselves, so what is the values of a user seeing that ad? Would they find it meaningful for their lives? Would they take it, go away and live a little bit better? Or would they just, simply find it entertaining? They have a good time watching this ad. So in everything we do put that question on top. And it's really much like a philosophy that we believe in that I think underlies the culture that we're building to focus on customer experience.
Right, thank you for your sharing. Okay, so I got a question on the screen, and I think this question is really appropriate for you, Paul, for your section. So what is your definition about customer experience, like from your point of view? Is it differentiated, or is it change across the industries, and which really matter the business and marketing outcomes in your point of view, from your point of view?
Thank you for your questions. Well, I think as P&G, as Procter & Gamble, we sell FMCG. So it's a very mass product where everyone need it, every household need it. It's just a matter of whether they choose you or they choose someone else. So for me, and I'm speaking on behalf of P&G, customer experience is all about moments of truth. That can be simply understand the aha moment or an ill moment. You can see it everywhere, in every touch point, every stage of customer experience, that when they touch your brand. For example, if they see the TVC and they, that's good, that's great. They will literally find you on e-commerce or somewhere else. Or maybe they click into that, your ads, right? But For example, if they go into a grocery store, they see your key visual, and then it's not nice, and then they will just literally, leaving you. They don't notice you, then you lose. Someone else are winning. So it's all about moments of truth, and it's even come to the point that it's very how you say, on the fragrance that you smell on the product, or even when you pour it out, you see the texture and the ladder, whether it's well planned or not well planned. It's also impacting. So it's all about moments of truth, and I think what we have been doing and trying to get even better is to get every moment of truth in every stage that are well presents P&G products and P&G as a corporation. So that's I think as a brand manager, I always have to, in every campaign that I do, I need to push agency, to push our team, and my boss the same. He always asks me, what's your moment of truth? What's your aha in the campaign? And what will you bring the customer, that aha moment, how you bring it out? So I think that's super important, and we also, we always need to keep that in mind.
Yeah, I understand from your point that moment of truth is very important because it can enter the customer perception of the brand. It can maybe even better or worse. So the question is that how can we make sure that we well manage and effectively manage all of the moment of truth that we have across the channels. And you know that we got a lot of things like online to offline, and a lot of customers, even when they're in the most work situation, like they get frustrated, like you say, it's not different. It's not consistent with what they get it from communication message from branding. So how can you effectively manage that kind of things and make sure that the total customer experience is successful?
Well, I think there's many ways to do it. But the things is we need to be data driven. That means we need to make decisions based on data. Either it's quantitative research, qualitative research, right? Or even a focus group test on just how you feel about the fragrance. But it needs to be based on data to make decision. There's no common sense on coming to customer experience. You need to do a lot of work. I must say there's 100 of methodology that we do. Like we test a CV copy, there's a multiple way to test a CV copy, whether it's qualified or not. But that's on first is to be data driven. The second, I think, is to push yourself in the consumer's shoes, and also to know your shopper as well, because your consumer sometimes is not your shopper. Like, yeah, the housewife can buy a product for the whole family, and her husband will use the product that she's buying, and he literally doesn't see the ads, doesn't experience, doesn't smell the fragrance of that product yet, but he still use it because his wife buy it already. So the experience of him is more on how he try it and the feeling after he try it. But the moments of truth for the wife is maybe how she buy it, what promotion she encounter in the store, or an in-store promoter that introduced a product to her. So I think we need to understand, put yourself in the shoes of consumer and also the shopper, and then you will see many different between them, because the age group, because the gender, and because the behavior, or the age group will lead to the digital experience also very different. So I think that's the two key points I want to bring up.
You want to share something? Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to add in a little bit more. So I think we usually think of like a customer experience as like on one point in time, right? And you come out, you have a perfect customer experience. But experience is very different from product. And it's not a matter of having a perfect design, but it's actually about like how good is the quality of like feedback loop that you get from the customer, and whether you can act fast on that feedback loop or not, and improve yourself over time. So customer experience is not one point in time, it's actually an evolving process that we do it like day by day.
Yeah, so it's all about the data, right? So you've got, either you want to get the right message, or you want to act fast, like Thao share, we need to get data. So I really want to ask a question for Mr. And then Mr. Lam Ho about the tools. Is everyone got any tools or technology behind that so we can maximize the effectiveness of a customer experience across all of the platforms?
I can start. I think so. For Coc Coc, we are a mass product. We have a lot of users. Most of our tools actually are in-house, and so we collect all this data from our users in anonymous fashion. But I think what I want to share is that so we're lucky to have this huge customer base, and like you shared, I think it's very iterative process, right? So we try a lot. So I think the way to do it is to do a lot of experiments. So we do A/B test, right? Normal way. It always starts from something very specific, right? So we want to improve something very specific. Let's say onboarding of the product on a very specific feature. So you need to be focused, because if you talk about customer experience in general, it's very blurry. And once you're focused, of course, you do your user research. Designers or UI UX designers, they have ideas. They're going to do a prototype. They're going to test it in usability testing. We're going to launch beta, and then we're going to release it to a small portion of our users and see what happens, right? And sometimes we still mess it up, right? I think here, like I mentioned before, we still want to be in touch with our users, and then we get this feedback loop from user support, and then I think what's important is to to react quickly. So something that we changed. So we have this feature to download videos. It's in the media manager, and we changed the UI UX. People were used to it, and then a lot of when we changed it, a lot of users gave us very negative feedback, right? But then I think we listened to their feedback, we fix it, and at the end, they really understood that we are listening to them, and we can mess it up, but we're going to fix it. And I think that become very powerful for users, and they were happy to somehow be part of the design process with this feedback loop. So that was quite interesting.
All right, so experience is very important, and we need to get a very detailed research test before launching. Yeah. Okay, so anh Lam Ho.
Ok, chắc là Hồ tiếp tiếng Việt ha. Hồ nghĩ bản thân sau khi vận hành Haravan 8 năm, Hồ nghĩ nó có 3 cái tool rất quan trọng mà Haravan tập trung vào. Nghĩ tool thứ nhất là dành cho khách hàng. Khách hàng của Haravan cũng như là buyer của seller. Tại khách hàng của Haravan là seller, mà buyer chính là khách hàng là khách hàng Haravan. Hồ nghĩ cái việc mà trải nghiệm của khách hàng nó rất quan trọng. Cái tool làm sao để nó thích nghi được những cái trend mới, làm sao chúng ta giải quyết không chỉ là online offline mà nhìn vào online đâu là những cái trend của online đang xuất hiện, làm sao giải quyết cả cái kênh mà hiện giờ rất là phổ biến là cái kênh chat, cũng là cái kênh mà gần như là các bạn trẻ prefer dùng cái kênh đó. Cái kênh chat cũng là cái kênh mà mọi người dùng để trải nghiệm, để mua sắm, dùng đó như là cái kênh tương tác với lại customer service. Dùng đó họ cần một cái customer support nhanh hơn, tốt hơn, và không phải là đi vào ticket như trước đây nữa. Họ cần một cái gì đó fast response, họ cần gì đó mà có ai đó phải phản hồi tôi rất là nhanh. Tôi lên một cái fanpage tôi trải nghiệm mua sắm, tôi đặt câu hỏi mà không thấy ai trả lời thì tôi qua một cái fanpage khác tôi mua. Tại quảng cáo nó hiện liên tục, nắm bắt tất cả cái cơ hội mà phải phản ứng rất là nhanh. Tôi nghĩ đó là cái tool rất là quan trọng trong cái trải nghiệm omnichannel của buyer. Cái tool thứ hai tôi nghĩ nó xoay quanh về câu chuyện là cái tool phục vụ cho nội bộ, làm sao đội marketing, đội customer service, đội sales có thể nhìn được cái thông tin của khách hàng này khi mà họ cần một cái sự support nhanh nhất có thể và dễ dàng. Sự dễ dàng đó điều rất quan trọng, làm sao họ nắm bắt được là toàn bộ cái history chat, khách hàng đã chat gì với cái tổ chức, những cái gì đã diễn ra, họ đã mua sắm gì, và cái hành vi, một số hành vi của khách hàng này trông như thế nào. Thì Hùng nghĩ là cái tool thứ hai dành cho internal. Và có một cái tool thứ ba Hùng nghĩ cũng rất là quan trọng, đó là liên quan tới đội sản phẩm, ngành hàng, hay có thể gọi là đội sản xuất đi. Cái đội đó Haravan thì có 2 đội, một đội là kỹ thuật và một đội là làm product. Thì nếu như cái tool làm sao để cho các bạn đó chủ động nhận được feedback của ngay khách hàng, họ cần có những cái góp ý về sản phẩm, những góp ý về sản phẩm có những cái vấn đề này, làm sao nó nhanh nhất và các bạn nó đón nhận được thông tin đó để có thể điều chỉnh sản phẩm phù hợp, làm sao có thể đáp ứng nhanh cái nhu cầu đó, làm sao thay đổi sản phẩm và là định hướng được cái sản phẩm nó nên trông như thế nào trong những cái quý tới, năm tới. Thì đó là ba cái tool, một cái tool về trải nghiệm của người dùng cuối, một cái tool làm sao mình có thể hiểu khách hàng hơn, cái đội support, cái đội mà tương tác khách hàng có thể phản ứng rất là nhanh. Tool thứ ba là dành cho đội ngành hàng, sản phẩm hay là đội sản xuất. Thì tôi nghĩ đó là ba cái điểm mà nó xoay quanh về cái chuyện phục vụ cho trải nghiệm nó được tốt hơn, sản phẩm nó tốt hơn để có thể đáp ứng được những nhu cầu đang thay đổi. Đó là cái góc nhìn của bản thân Hồ.
Okay, thank you, Anh Ho, for your interesting point. And I think that we have been through many points since the A/B testing experiment, the practice, best practice of Coc Coc, and a moment of truth, insights, culture, and all of the etc. things that contribute to the sustainable CX strategy. So the last question I would like to ask all of the 4 guest speakers here is that can you state, like, from your point of view, 3 most important things that came across your mind when we wish to deliver an exceptional CX strategy? What are the 3 most important things? Yeah, 3 keywords. Start with Paul.
Well, I think 3 keywords. I mean, it's very big, and I'm selling, a mass product, so that's a lot of things to mention. But I would say that first is to be very know the touch point very well. Like you need to know every touch point that consumer can touch your brand in any place, anytime. That's the first one. The second one is to know the moments of truth for each of the touch point. VR, survey, qualitative study, qualitative, anything on, get from data from third parties. The third one I would say is to have the right success measure, because most of the time we set not a right success measure. Sometimes we set it too high, sometimes we set it too low. That shows that we don't understand our consumer so much to the point that we know. So that's my 3 points to have a best customer experience.
Okay, so Thảo, your turn.
I don't know if I can come up with like 3, but I think for top of mind, what we've learned is that it's very easy to rely on things like tools and data and a lot of like media channels. That sometimes for us we forget that we're serving a human, and customer experience is all about a human experience, right? So the way we want to be treated, the way we want to be talked about, is actually the internal insights that already inside us when we do the customer experience. So having the tools, having the media is great, but don't forget that at the end of the day, the message you say and how you say it can come a lot from the human insights within each of us. And the second point that I usually feel is that we all know that customer experience is important, right? It's great for success, but when we get out of the room or get out of this forum, how to maintain it and how to do it is actually a critical question. Because normally we'll face the trade-offs between delivering a great customer experience and the time and money it costs to do so, right? And usually great customer experience comes with immediate cost, but not a short-term gains in terms of economics. So really, I think customer experience and delivering it, following it is a belief that we marketer should have, because I think customers really looking for brands that can deliver the top experience. But sometimes because of other priorities that we have, and usually, what's worthy is not easy to see immediately. but it's the huge returns in the long terms. So that's our belief.
Okay. Anh Vũ Anh.
No, I really agree with Thao. I think so. We are a technology company doing technology products, and there are a lot of engineers in our team, and I think it's really important to, at the end of the day, to think about our users as people. Right? And I think the one way that we're trying to differentiate is, to show that we care. And so, this is really the kind of human touch, and we can also use technology, right, to scale. So I think for me, there's a keyword also is personalization is very important. And this I mean, the example, the classic example is IKEA effect, right? So IKEA is selling, table, chairs, right? And then because you have to build your furniture, right? So this is great, right? They don't have to build the furniture, you build the furniture. And because of that, the perceived value is higher. That's great, right? And if you look at what Apple is doing, so they announced iOS 16, right? What's creating the buzz is you can personalize your lock screen. It's not very complicated, right? But it's like for technology product, somehow you make it something kind of complicated in the back, but you make it simple and you allow people to personalize basically their customer experience, their user experience. And this is great because this is their product, and perceived value is much higher, and stickiness, retention. So I think that's what we're trying to do. Definitely it's not easy, but a lot of experimentation, and then work hard on it.
Bản thân Hồ thì nghĩ có 3 thứ. Customer Experience rất quan trọng, Customer Space sẽ là rất quan trọng. Như vậy cá nhân thì nhìn thấy là có 3 việc. Thứ nhất là cái niềm tin, cái sự tin tưởng của khách hàng đối với tổ chức, từng con người, từng sản phẩm của mình. Tôi nghĩ đó là cái key quan trọng nhất là sự tin tưởng, sự tin cậy của khách hàng, sự tin cậy của người dùng đối với sản phẩm dịch vụ của mình. Đó là điểm thứ nhất mà luôn nghĩ đó là luôn nằm trong cái suy nghĩ, và đó là sự nỗ lực liên tục. Việc thứ hai tôi nghĩ đó là trend, adapt cái trend, làm sao thích nghi được cái trend đó, làm sao nhìn thấy được cái trend sắp diễn ra là gì. Bản thân Haravan phải nhìn ở góc độ là buyer experience, người tiêu dùng, người mua sắm đang dịch chuyển như thế nào. Tại vì người mua sắm dịch chuyển ở đâu thì nhà bán hàng chắc chắn sẽ dịch chuyển tới đó. Người mua họ đang có nhu cầu xem short video thì nhà bán họ cũng sẽ cần kinh doanh trên short video. Và để capture được cái nhà bán hàng thì Haravan cũng phải thích nghi, thay đổi, cũng phải dùng những cái short video có thể để tiếp cận khách hàng, và adapt cái trend như vậy, hiểu được nhu cầu của buyer, hiểu được cái nhu cầu của chính khách hàng của mình, họ sẽ thay đổi như họ sẽ cần cái gì. Và cuối cùng đó là cái product innovation, sáng tạo về sản phẩm. Đó là một cái gọi như là DNA của tổ chức này. Tôi nghĩ có 3 cái điểm rất quan trọng là niềm tin, adapt cái trend, và cái thứ ba là cái innovation product. Thì sản phẩm mình không innovate, không theo kịp xu hướng thì khách hàng cũng sẽ rời đi thôi. Thì đó là 3 cái điểm mà khi mà hỏi về 3 keyword quan trọng nhất, luôn chọn như vậy.
Yeah, thank all of you for your sharing. I think that with that, we all understand that besides technology, human touch, involvement of culture and right process, right people, and product development as well is, very important ingredients in making a CX strategy exceptional and successful. So with that, I would say thank you to all of the guest speakers for your spending time and sharing with the audience, and best of luck to all of you. Thank you all.
So thank you so much, the moderator and all the panelists, for the first panel discussion in our event today. So ladies and gentlemen, once again, could you give a big applause to say thank you all of them for their sharing? Thank you so much. I hope all of you have taken the valuable part out of the first panel discussions. So, ladies and gentlemen, I have a news for you, and I think it's a good news. So, now we are behind the schedule, so the networking break will be open at a lunchtime, and at that time, each of you will have more than 1 hour to see your friends and your partners. So, and don't forget take some photo at the photo booth at a lunchtime. And now we move to the last presentation in the morning session of our event today. So, the next speaker will give his keynote presentation on how to create an engaging brand experience. And in the last over 25 years, he has been contributing his knowledge of culture, history, insights, creativities, and strategic planning, as well as implementation experience to successful corporations and brands in Vietnam and the Southeast Asia region. So, ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together to welcome on stage Mr. Hoang Dao Hiep, Director of Communication and Marketing Services, Nestle Vietnam. The microphone at that side.
Hello, everyone. I know my part would be very hard because maybe you want to have lunch right now, so the pressure is on. But I'm so delighted to share with you today about the thing that I think this is the thing I wake up every day and go to work, is to create the engaging experience for the brand that I'm working for. So before going into that, we see this is an exclamation about the last year. This is, and hopefully we don't have to say like this when we end this year. The COVID came and changed our life forever. And so it also changed everything in the marketing world. Because the world changed the way we live a year ago, 2 years ago, changed a month ago, and even a week ago, and it is very fast. The need changed, the life changed, and the and how and where we connect also dramatically changed, and it has become increasingly complex to reach out to the consumers out there. It's become more and more difficult to tell a good story, and especially with the confinement and the lockdowns that just happened. But then how do we adapt? How do we still make our brands relevant? How do we create more meaningful? How do we still evoke the emotion in all of these changes? And but then what changed is still, there's hopefully, I think very luckily, that there are still a lot of things never change. So what changes? Nothing. What are the things that never change? The first thing is the foundation. A decent brand always have the foundation that it is really enduring. The promise, the commitment, the purpose of the brand, the promise to the consumer and the customer. Those are the things that never change. The marketing is built on very strong insight that it is supercharged with attention. That things never change as well. It is a deep understanding of the human truth, of the needs and the challenge that our consumer that it is facing every day, and also the tension that our brand is promised to be solved with them. That thing, the power of the insight also never change. And then the big idea, the power of the big ideas also never change. It is that there are big ideas that works and works and works and works for many years, and still forging new engagement, still forging fresh experience when people encountering with them. But then at the same time, everything changed as well in marketing. Never before we have many new technology. You just saw that many new things change. The way that people watching TV change. The way that people consume the social media change. There are many new technology change. There are many new and more exciting ways to engage and surprise the consumers. And that all together create the power at the intersection of art and science. And then we have that power in our hand to create a transformational power to be a force for good, to create the positive movement. So now we move into the theater of the brand, where we bring the brand to life by creating the experience. Because we do not just want the consumer to need us, we want the consumer to want us. We want the consumer to engage with us at a very deep emotional level, that by and only by that way that we become indispensable at their life. And then that it is desire. So we need to make our brand desired by the consumers. How come? How to make it desired? This is a theater. The whole concept of us going to a theater and being locked and drawn into that room is because we are anticipating something great. It is because we expect to enjoy a story, but not only a story, a compelling story. And then that it is exactly the brand is about. So today I will talk to you about the brand. Does that the brand has a story? And if it has a story, is that compelling enough? And then the framework to create the engagement of those stories. We'll talk about the brief, that I call it the big ideas brief. And then the details of it, and then the big idea itself. Very simple. To create the engaging brand experience. First, talking about the brand. You see this one. The one on the right-hand side is chocolate. The one on the on this side is also chocolate, isn't it? The difference is that the one on this side has a compelling story. And then that compelling story making this become so different to all the other chocolate in this whole world. So that's exactly what the brand is. It is a product, a very good product, and then plus a compelling story. And this compelling story is made by sensorial, by experiential, by personal, and also this compelling is also the result of business and equity building as well. And all of this, it creates a very strong emotional bonding that it is convincing the consumer that, oh, you know, like it is a brand that I want. It is a brand that I desire. It is a brand that I love. But then, you know, like we can see it is getting more and more difficult because, you know, we are trying to tell stories, advertisers trying to tell stories, agencies trying to tell stories, the trade trying to tell stories, but the consumers now, they are telling the story of their own. And I have to say, sometimes their story is more engaging than our story. Also, I think also, you know, that right now there's a lot of screen. People are following, you know, so many different screens. It is so hard to capture the attention. And then also people expected to be experienced, to experience a brand not only by one dimension, but also by a very different level of engagement. And then it becomes, like a total brand experience. So it is so challenging that Chuck Porter of the agency, Crispin Porter and Boguski, said that all that really matters now is the power of the story. If you are focused on anything else, you are wasting your time and resources. It doesn't mean to say that, oh, we should not focus on technology. But then if the technology making us telling a story better, then that's what we do. But then, we just don't follow the technologies or science, just for the sake of it. It is only to tell our story better. Yeah. So the ultimate question is that, does your brand have a compelling story? I'm going to give you an example about a brand with a very compelling story. It is Milo. Milo is the brand. It's the fortified food, tonic food drink, and then it provides the necessary mineral, the vitamins that the kid need. And then it is iconized by Milon of Croton, a Greek Olympian, that it is quite famous about strength and endurance. So when you drink Milo, it is tasty first. It tastes so good. And then at the same time, it brings you nutrition. It provides you energy. And it accompanies you on the way to be successful in life. Very simple, like that. And all of those pillars just link directly to the ambition of all the moms, to the kid. Is that, okay, like the sport will help my kid having the successful in life. Very simple triangle of that. The Milo and the mom and the kid. So that it is the big idea of Milo cannot be more simpler. Yeah, that it is the sport is a great picture. It tells the story of Milo in a very compelling way. And it is the big idea that that has been around for the last maybe 10 years. And then based on that big idea, so many different campaigns of Milo was aired. And I know that many of you in here are very familiar with the campaigns of Milo. Let's look at the example, and then you see the latest campaign of Milo, that it is based on that big idea. It is a true grit, and it is in Vietnamese is tiếp ý chí để thành công.
Tài năng thì tốt thật, nhưng quan trọng hơn cả là ý chí của con. Tài năng thường được tán thưởng. Wherever you go, get your Milo, get your Milo, get your Milo, get your Milo, now get your Milo, get your Milo. Còn ý chí giúp con tin tưởng chính mình. Wherever you go, tài năng có thể vượt trên đối thủ. Ý chí cùng con bền bỉ mỗi ngày. Get your Milo, get your Milo, get your Milo. Và bứt phá giới hạn bản thân. Get your grade up, get your Milo. Tài năng không thích thất bại. Ý chí giúp con từ thất bại bật dậy mạnh mẽ hơn. Milo. Và tài năng dù có hay không, ý chí rèn từ thể thao sẽ cùng con vươn đến thành công.
Thank you. That's a very, very good creative work. That it is a very good co-creation between our Milo brand team and the and the strategic agency, Ho Kin Vi. But then behind all of this, to bringing this story to life, there's a framework to create the engagement. And it is at Nestle, we call it the brand building the Nestle way. And it is a version 4.0 of it. Basically, it looked like a house. Yeah, and there are 5 rooms in the house that it is interconnected with each other. The very first room is to know the consumer deeply. Very much know it deeply. Know your consumer deeply. Second one, simple, it is about the brand. It is inspired by the purpose of the brand, and it is guided to the execution by the essence of the brand. The third one is about the portfolio of the brand. It's to design a sustainable and innovative portfolio that people love. And then this red room is about what we are talking about today. It is create engaging brand experience through the work of strategy, through the work of creative, through the work of media, and through the work of activation and production. And then the last room is to put everything together to plan and execute flawlessly. Very simple. And the core to the red room of creating a brand experience is the very famous thing of Nestle that we call the BEP, stand for the brand engagement pilot. The first one is about the work of strategy and creative to have the big idea. And then the last one is that to bring that big idea to life by the work of creative to have the campaign idea that is based on the big idea, and then having the integrated media strategy. And then after that, follow up with activation and personalization to that. And we are very mindful of the three things that it is across all of these steps. Is that data power. We are not data driven, we are data power. Yeah? Consumer centric and personalized. Then now we're talking about the brief. The brief to the agency, it has to be brief. Yeah? That's why it is called the brief. It is not called the law. Yeah? The first thing, it is have to be clear. The brief has to be very clear to the agency. It has to be singular. It has to be decisive. It has to be sharp. And it has to be very focused. Then after that, it has to be aligned. I know that many of you in here would have a smile because, like sometimes, what we want and what we promise to you is that the budget is this big, and then after that, the reality is very small. Yeah. So that it is why it needs to be very, very much aligned. It is aligned about the road ahead of us, how to get to that, how we get to that road, what are the process and what are the output of that. And then the brief have to be inspiring. Remember, the brief that you are writing, the target audience of that brief are the genius mind of the creative people. Yeah? And it has to be inspiring. We can have the brief that it is we put all the data in there. It can be very comprehensive. It can be completed. And it can be even very clear. But then, is it inspiring? Is it inspiring? Because, if it is, in here, it is about creative. And this should be the very first creative breakthrough. And then it has to start with the brief itself. If the thing that it is not clear, if the thing that it is vague and unspecific, and then the creative work that it is answer to the brief will become unspecific and vague as well. And then here, maybe many of you found yourself being one of the type of these clients. I am some type as well. We can look at the one that is check in and hide or keep changing their mind. It is, you can easily see that it is a type of the client who always lật bàn. And then maybe you see the one that it is constant distrusting bad mood. Chị thấy cái này không ổn tí nào cả. Chị thấy rằng là nó làm sao, nó sao á. And never tell you why. And then also the one that it is a dictator, that it is directing you guys. Logo bigger. Yeah? Change this to a greenish blue. Use this font type. Yeah? So we are like that from time to time, and we are guilty for that part. Yeah? Then we're talking about the details of the brief. But before that, we have to make sure that we are going on the right direction by having the brand in all the context of it. Really understand the context of it. And then the first item of the brief is about the competitive content and cultural landscape. The brand does not live in a vacuum. The brand lives in a landscape. And then you have to see, okay, what it is a category doing, what it is a competition doing, what are the cultural trends that it is affecting the whole category. And then now we are not only competing with the competitors, we are competing with the content that it is in the landscape. And we have to be very clear about the commercial ambition. We just cannot want everything. What exactly the brand want to achieve. And then we have to define who are we talking to as a person. And then this, the most transformative part of the brief. It is the most difficult, but then it is the most important part. What is the deep truth about the target that will turn the current behavior into the desired behavior? That it is the insight thing. That it is the aha moment. Yeah, that it is the deep understanding of the human truth. And then we have to identify the reason why that this brand exists. And then here I give you a very simple example of the brand purpose. Nestle, we have a brand that's called Garden Gourmet. And then this Garden Gourmet brand that they believe is that the more people embrace the plant-based food, then the better the world will be. So that Garden Gourmet simply have a conviction to make the world fall in love with all the goodness of plant-based food. Simple. And that it is a big purpose that worth people contributing for. And then sure that you are very familiar with this functional benefit. What I'm talking in here is about the benefit. It is not the ingredients of your brand. We're talking about, okay, what is the ingredient bringing what benefit? And then we're talking about emotional benefit, that it is basically very simple term, is a positive feeling that people have when encountering with the brand. And as you know, it is my favorite slide, is that the reason always lead to conclusion and the emotion lead to action. And people, buy your brand is because of the emotion. Yeah? And then the emotion is the ultimate way to create loyalty beyond reason. Yeah, there are brands that it is exactly like you. There are brands that it is maybe cheaper. Maybe there are brands that it is available just right there. But you still choose this brand. Because what? It is because that it is a loyalty beyond reason. And that only can be built by perpetuating the emotion. And then we see the meaningful product truth. Okay, you talk a lot about your brand, and now you have to prove to us what you will do. And then in a very meaningful way. For example, in here, we have our technology, we have our heritage, we have our ingredients, but that will not be meaningful unless you show to people, okay, what it is, the feeling, what it is, the experience of the bubble or of the taste. And then, if this brand is a person, if this brand is a human being, then what kind of persona it has? Then it comes to the last thing, is that the ownable brand proposition. What it is a single strategic statement that the brand can own to, at the end of the day, convince the consumer that they have to buy our brand, no other substitute. And be very careful in here that this ownable brand proposition, it is still a statement thing. It is still a client agency thing. It is not something that the consumer see it. Yeah, it is strategy. It is the result of strategy, whereby the creativity come the big idea, and then the big idea itself is the creative expression of the ownable brand proposition. So At the end of the day, you have the insight, and then you have the brand proposition, and then in the middle, you hope to create a magic in here of the big idea. And then when you have a very big idea, that it is big enough, that it is good enough, you can be able to create campaign idea number 1, campaign idea number 2, campaign idea number 3, and so on, and so on, and so on. And that it is a testament of how big the idea should be. I give you an example of that, of the big idea that works and works and works. And then it works on TV, it works on digital, and it works on sampling as well. And I'm giving you an example of doing very simple activation that it is sampling, but carry the big idea. Yeah, the big idea is have a break, have a Kit Kat. Yeah, and from Brazil.
Flying high up in the sky, that's where I wanna be. It is just you and me. Hold my hand above the clouds. Nothing can stop us now. Just let me show you how. Come with me and have a break from things that bring you down. We'll take off and leave it all behind. Flying high up in the sky, that's where we're gonna be. Open your eyes and see, there's a whole world waiting for you and me.
Okay, so just to summarize, that we went through a set of tools. So we have to maximize the tools to create something so compelling, to create something so fantastic, to create something beautiful. And then it should be the clear, aligned way to the star that we want to bring our brands to. And then it should be a documented inspiration. Like everything good, it requires effort. It's a lot of effort, but don't sweat the steps. Because we are going to journey together. Let's be brave. Let's have some fun. Let's build a story. Let's create something big to our brand to be desired at the end of the day. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much for your sharing. I think it was outstanding. And I'm sure all the informations and the knowledge you have shared, it means so much to us. And thank you again, Mr. Hiep. So everybody, as I told you before, this is the last presentation in the morning session. But we still have the last panel discussion in the morning sessions. And right now, we move to the panel 2, unveiling brand safety re-image, a toolkit for modern marketers. And in these sessions, our experts and panelists will talk about the importance of brands safety, the guardrails they follow, and recommend to the industry at large, and the involving digital environments would make it even more imperative for one to harness the appropriate brand safety measures. And right now, please put your hand together to welcome on stage the panelists, Mrs. Trần Thị Thanh Mai, General Director, Kantar Media Vietnam, Mrs. Cho Phang, Growth Hub Head, Vietnam and Cambodia, Sanofi CIC, Mrs. Hoang Minh Ngọc, Chief Growth Officer from Cho Tot, and the moderator, Mrs. Jamie Wang, Head of Digital and Data Mediacom. And please welcome them on stage by a big applause, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm very honored to be the moderator today, and I know it's approaching to the lunch time, so I have my phone here just to ensure that I'll finish this session within 40 minutes. So please promise me you will stay here until we finish the session. And with that, I would like to say thank you for the panelists today, and I would like to have an introduction for our panelists across the different fields. So we have Zhao from Sanofi.
Hello, everyone. My name is Xiao. Happy to be here. I'm from Sanofi Consumer Healthcare, a representative from healthcare industry to be here today.
And Ngo represent from brand, but also very interesting from the marketplace platform side.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Ying Ngọc. Currently, I'm the Chief Growth Officer at Cho Tot. Nice to meet all of you.
And finally, we have Mai from Kantar Media.
Hello, everybody. Old face and new face. So you know that I'm heading Kantar Media. We do media research. We hope to share with you today some perspective from research company.
Welcome, everyone. So as we know, COVID has accelerated the digital growth adoption in the last 2 years. And I've been seeing a lot of the advertisers that they're spending more and more on digital media. And especially in this year, the digital ad spend will grow by 11% in this year, by end of this year. So with this rapid growth, there's also obviously a concern on the brand safety and brand suitability. And from a third-party point of view, how do you see like the brand safety evolving in Southeast Asia and especially in Vietnam?
I think that the pandemic has obviously affected our life, especially in terms of digital transformations. And it affected all aspects of life, including, brands, not brand. Say that consumer behavior. So not only the brands advertise more on digital, but consumer also consume more digital time than TV, than any traditional media. So consumer behavior changing, consumer preference also changing. So does brands. I think that they had to adapt. Therefore, I think that brand safety consideration also had to change. So we see, a big trend from people moving from what we call avoidance from malware, spam, or what we call that, like adultery contents, like the explicit sex or whatever. And especially in Vietnam, we also having to move away from what we call content political sensitivities, because a lot of it's a little bit different in the other more democratic markets. So Vietnam, the political content sensitivity is so quite important. But brands moving away from avoiding any size or any platform which having those kind of stuff become more what they call allowance. So that means the brands now are looking at brand suitability as well. Not only brand safety in the sense that keeping away from something which might be harmful for the brands, but being more selective in terms of which content is appropriate for me. So certain content on the digital platform is suitable for certain brands, but may be inappropriate for certain brands. So I think that is more flexibility, more adaptive to the changing environment.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because brand safety is actually a challenge across the whole ecosystem, right? It's not only particular for the advertisers, but also for the publishers as well. Different parties will have a different role to play. So as a leading healthcare brand, I'll be interesting, what is the approach that Sanofi is taking to ensure brand safety and suitability protection?
Thanks, Jamie, for the question. So, we all know that COVID pandemic has shaped the interest into healthcare significantly, right? So as a healthcare organization, our mission and vision is to serve a healthier, fuller life for all the people. It's not just today, but for generations to come. So brand safety is a must on our checklist, not to ensure that we deliver our business sustainably, but it's also to balance the brand and coverage value, as well as ensure our act is responsibly to the interests of our society. So medicine is unlike other consumer good products. It has immediate and direct impact to people's health. So we have to be extremely cautious in the way that we expose our ads to the consumer, and also to ensure that they get the right message at the end of the day. So to do so, to ensure that, we set out 5 golden rules, or we can say like golden step in implementing our brand safety at the organization level, and that bring out the whole matrix of clients, media agency, and publisher collaboration. So we cannot just do that on our own. So what are the 5 steps? Step number 1, we already have like wonderful, credible publisher, right? So why we have to do it on our own? So we rely on the support of the publisher. So within Sanofi, what we decided to do is we only partner with YouTube, Facebook, and coming next is TikTok, and we only choose to buy limited inventory. So that helps to string out on not so non-relevant contents that might wrongly associate with our brand and products. So step number 2, a little bit manual, but because we have our media agency, right? So another expert on the field. So with the help from our media agency, we also add another layer to ensure that we have like exclusive filter in terms of the non-sensitive content like keywords, such as like it's subject to the timing of the situation and where we want to implement our campaigns as well. For example, like for now, we're gonna filter on things related to Russia, Ukraine, etc. And the third one, why we have the competencies ready, right, from our agency. We also have to make sure that we set the clear KPI and scorecard to measure our brand safety. And once we set out the scorecard, we need to make sure that we measure that. So there is 2 types of measurement that we're actually implementing. The first implementation, which is step number 4, is we use third-party tracking. And to ensure that we track our brand safety score on monthly basis. And speaking of that, we are using IAS, so-called Integral Ad Science. And last but not least, we just cannot 100% rely on, even though our agency are super duper, but we have to make sure that we take our responsibility to make sure that we have a good return on investment and align and comply with what we actually set out in terms of the scorecard and the brand performance, right? So we do weekly tracking led by our internal media team with the media agency to measure our brand safety scorecard, and then on monthly basis with the attendance of the brand team to ensure that everything is on aligned. So those are the 5 key steps. Has proven it working quite well for us because our brands are still safe till now. I'm happy to share the practice and also happy to learn from others as well. Maybe perhaps a platform like Cho Tot.
So yeah, it'll be interesting to hear from not only a brand perspective but also a platform perspective from Cho Tot, like how they are tackling this issue.
Yeah, because on Cho Tot, we perceive that brand safety is actually reinforcing the trust between the brand and the user. Like Mai has said earlier, the safety needs to be for both users and the product as well. So the nature of our product is secondhand, and then a person can sell and buy from low value items like electronics or fashion, or high value items like a properties or a cars or a motorbike. So we need to accept that we can face the challenge of brand safety anytime, and we need to be proactive for that. So at Cho Tot, we implement 2 key things. The first one will be how to control the ad quality, because every day we have a huge number of ads listed on our site by individuals like you and me, and also how to detect and minimize the false possibility for users to prevent the abusive sellers to approach the buyer, etc. So for this case, we need to use both manual and AI ML-based machine technology to tackle. And secondly is the principle of user-focused mindset. So we cannot just go out and say that, hi, our brand is very reliable, let's use it to buy and sell, but we need to understand what are the core user problems when a user go along the journey of buy and sell to really have the product refinements and to bring the customer experience for them. So those are two things, and I think that brand safety needs to come from a cross-team efforts. It does not need to come only from the brand, but it needs to work closely with product, data, tech, and so on.
And that's very interesting because you talk about a lot of the advanced technology to help you to improve the brand safety control. Can you just elaborate a little bit more about the machine learning and how you're using machine learning, how you use artificial intelligence with the data? And specifically, I think there's also a question coming as well, like, are there any specific tech systems or tools that Cho Tot is applying for this brand safety measure?
Okay, as mentioned earlier, we have a huge number of ad listings every day on the site. And currently, at this time speaking, we have more than 2 million live ads on our site as well. So how to control the ad quality, how to reduce the frauds. Normally, we definitely have an in-house robust system in order to set our own rules. We have the certain list of signals to detect the unique nature of the risk that we could face. And then we will layer on top the machine learning technology to help the people can analyze the data of sellers and analyze the data of the ads more accurately and faster. And beside the in-house system, of course, we need to work with the providers in the market as well. So we will audit and then we will select the most veteran providers that can offer some sophisticated technology. And the important things is we need to implement the detection at the critical touch points. For example, when a person starts to create an account or when a person starts to insert an ad. Those are the key steps that we need to apply a lot of AI and ML.
Right. So what I heard from both Zhao and also Ngo sharing is there's actually no one-size-fits-all approach. Like for different advertisers, they'll have a different custom approach for the brand safety measure. And I think it's fundamental practices are there already, technologies are all in place, but still in today, we still see a lot of the media platforms, social platforms and content platforms, they are struggling to block the negative content, fake news, hate speech. And I guess my friends from Google and Meta team, they will probably want to address this question, but it will be interesting to hear from third-party point of view, like why do you think this happened? And you know, do you see there is a opportunity for improvement?
I would think that when you talk about brand safety, when we talk about suitability for the brands more than just only brands avoidance, then you're also looking at the local culture and local nuances. So I think that Google and Facebook is very, very big in Vietnam. You know that over 90%, 6% of people are serving Google or YouTube every day in Vietnam. And the same, very similar, over 90% people are using Facebook every day. So it's huge market for Google and Facebook. The content in these social platforms are user-generated content. So therefore, I think that user-generated content is very different from professional content from the media, for example, because it's censored. The language they use much better. So in Vietnam itself, the Vietnamese language is not easy. So I think that even though huge tech company like Google or Facebook, they're very good at AI. They're very good at different technical issue or technical solution. But understanding a language, understanding the nuances of the culture of Vietnam or local markets is much harder. So not saying that the Vietnamese language is a little bit different. We also have 6 different tones. And the way you're using language also, even you sometimes you think it's compliment, but in fact it's criticism. So, in order for AI to work, you need a huge human resource to build the vocabulary before the machine can work. So, AI doesn't replace human. So therefore, I think that's huge, it requires a lot of hard work, time, efforts, expertise in language to help Google or Facebook to be more, respond to what they call brand safety. So it's the huge word, huge trend in the world with big brands, Nestle, P&G, Unilever, putting in together standardized for brand safety. So the first question we talk about the aspect of brand safety. Now people the world's talking about brand safety It's safe for the advertiser, so it's not only for brands alone, but also safe for consumers. It also talk about the responsiveness of the platform, how they're correcting mistakes, how they're dealing are more open in the transparency words to be more responsive and provide more safety for brands and consumers together. So I think that is why, in terms of languages, in terms of control, nuances, you need to be putting in practice.
Yeah, I think that's very interesting because a lot of the time that we are adopting the global solution, but never think about how this can fit into the local context, and that's why like all these languages, culture need to be taken into account when we're implementing the brand safety. But are you seeing, because it's a challenge, and do you also see there's any publishers, platforms, or any measurement partners that they are taking any small steps to improve this?
Pretty sure that Google, for example, are getting much better at the Vietnamese translation. So at least I think that they're working on that. It's the improvement. The only thing that takes time is not happen in one day. So I think that those, and I think that the Google teams also very fast in terms of reaction or responsive to comments. So for example, they say, for just misinformation on the internet, on the Google site, the machine can only remove, less than 1 million posts or content. But by manually remove, that means that some people on a feedback or make comment, and then Google teams are making manually remove the content is over 1,700 million posts, just in terms of languages. So, that's global picture. But even for the local language, I think it's much harder for Google to remove, technically or automatically contents, which might contains misinformation or harmful to consumers.
Yeah, well, at least that's assuring to hear that the publishers are taking a small step to address this. And I guess it's not just about implementing the brand safety, but a lot of the time, brands, advertisers will ask, like, after we implement the brand safety measure and control, what is the outcome? And recently, I have read this research from IIS, and it's really interesting. It talks about how brand safety has a direct and indirect impact to consumer purchase decision. And in this research, it shows that 60% of the consumers, they are unlikely to purchase the product which is advertised next to the unsafe content or in the inappropriate environment. So it will be interesting to know for the brands that they have a consistent brand safety approach, a long-term vision. Do you see Sanofi, they have a impact, a positive impact on the business when implementing brand safety?
That I'm absolutely agree with the statement that you have just mentioned from IAS, because as a responsible healthcare MNC, and with the clear vision of improving life and health of the people that we serve, whether it's in Vietnam or all over the world. So sustainable growth is the thing that we have been always looking for. So growth with us is not just the business growth. Business growth will come hands in hands with the growth in terms of healthcare accessibility, condition, and understanding of the people. So our brand safety is right now scoring at 99.7% on monthly basis. So it's close to 100%. And I do believe that it translates to a business impact. So if you might witness, last year, right, during the pandemic, a lot of the category is actually on the significant decline. Even people say that healthcare is on the rise, but it's not. Healthcare is also on the decline. But here at Sanofi, we managed to grow our top line, our share, our brand metrics, and also our bottom line. But it's not just for last year, and it's also continuing, this quarter and the recent quarter as well. So this is on, I'm not sure that it's have 100% reflection into the brands and the business performance, but I do believe that it has some indirect impact, positive indirect impacts to the business, not just short term, but also long term, as long as we committed to stay true to the brand safety.
And what are the key metrics that are set to measure for the brand safety? Like, I guess this question can be answered by you or Ngoc. what are the indicators when you are measuring, and how often do you measure and refresh the guideline, the policy?
For us, we will use both internal and external data in order to measure the brand safety. So specifically in-house, we will measure the quality and accuracy of the fraud detection mechanism through certain monitoring metrics, while externally we will use the brand tracker exercise, and we have the scoring on perception of user towards the brand attribute for us. But most importantly, like Joe mentioned, I mean that we can have a lot of metrics to tell us about our brand health, but what does it mean for our users? So it comes to how we measure the success of the users, how to make sure that they can transact safe and fast on our side. So we combine those two kind of hybrid mechanism. And we will measure it, of course, on a regular basis, daily, weekly, and monthly, depending on the metric.
Right. It's interesting. So I guess for when implementing back to what you just mentioned earlier, right, for the business outcome, the brand reputation, it's not something that we can build over one night or build over one campaign. It's a long-term it's a long-term relationship that you have to build with your consumers. And then I guess that when the trust relationship has built, your consumer will more likely to purchase the product, and therefore the business will grow. All right. So from your side, like, is there any recommendation, like when brands that they are implementing the brand safety, what would be your recommendation to the advertisers today?
All right. So brand safety, I do believe it's much easier for MNC to implement, because there is always a a clear guideline, and also a very the readiness in terms of digital ecosystem, right? But then I do believe that for SME, there is still a long ways to go, really, to balance between a consumer touch versus the brand and corporate value at the end of the day. And then it also have to transition the brand safety within three key strategic pillars, which are, if I'm not remember correctly, then financials, brand reputation, and legal risk. And thanks for this great opportunity. Because of MMA put me on this topic of brand safety, I have to do my research. I listened to a lot of postcards from a like brand safety expert around the world, and happened there is a guy from Group M saying, there are shifts around brand safety, and the major shift is actually happening on the general, the consumer, the content, and also the policy. So, for the past few years, brand safety is not just brand safety. If you actually observe and then realize, brand safety is a reflection of a brand social responsibilities. And as a brand owner, I strongly believe that no matter what we do, we have to start whatever we do with a strong purpose. And constantly asking ourselves a question, why? So why we have to do that, and why we doing that? That helps to guide our brand safety. In this topic in particular, it's gonna help to guide your brand safety on the decision around the brand safety. And in order to, for you and the organization to achieve sustainable growth, and also to be a responsible member of the society that we are on playing a part. And to be honest, in my opinion, there is no right and wrong, definite right and wrong answer when it comes to brand safety. But we all together, like brand owner, a platform owner, publisher, media agency, everyone, we should come together as from a different association to ensure that we create a healthy and safe environment, not just for our brands, but also for the user. Yeah, that's my opinion.
Yeah, sure.
I add to Joe's. I think that, for big multinational company, if are members of World Federation of Advertisers, you probably know about the brand safety policy and toolkits very clearly. Because I think that's, they publish what they call the brand safety toolkits for all big brands. But for the local Vietnamese SME, we are not the member of WFA. I would recommend you looking for, the brand safety toolkits or guideline on IAB, the International Advertising Bureau. They're also having the toolkits or guidelines specifically for Southeast Asia or for a country like Vietnam. So I think it would help you to get a better framework for brand safety when you're talking about advertising online.
Thank you. Thanks, Mai. So it's very interesting about how we talk about the current situation, challenges that we are facing, and how technology can actually help the brand to solve all these brand safety challenges. But what do you think will be the revolutionary shift, where this would take us to? And what would be the associated implication for the advertisers, the marketers today? How we better prepare for the future?
I have some thought on this one. I mean that like recently the metaverse has been a buzz keyword for everyone. And in fact, it offers the opportunities for users, for consumers to go there and play or work or connect and even buy the products or services from those virtual space. So actually there are certain brands, especially in the games or entertainment, they have been on board with that trend. And sooner or later, every brand will need to, I think, experiment the ways to leverage these new trends to unlock the new segment of users. And we need to be mindful, but we need to be open at the same time to succeed.
Mai, would you like to?
I would say it's like Cho mentioned earlier. So when it's not only coming from the advertisers, coming from legal perspective, from business sustainability, and also, from platform, from media agency, from the whole industry or the whole own stakeholder putting efforts together on brand safety. So I would think that the big shift is happening now, actually, and people are talking about it and working about it. So basically, both Meta or Facebook or Google are now start open their, I would call them black box, sharing the data, try to understand it more with third party company like ourselves research, try to understand their data, making sure that there's no hidden agenda behind the data they connected. And also on the global scale, we're working with Google as to put together what we call the cross-media measurement. So because measurement is also one part of the KPI for brands safety. So therefore, we're also looking at common measurement units so that we can understand making both the offline and online what's being easy to understand for advertiser or for everybody in that sector. So I think that is happening now, and we hope that in the very, very near future, 1 or 2 years, then you can get a more recognized, standardized measurement or KPI for all campaigns across offline and online. And actually, in Kantar Media Vietnam, we started tracking advertising on the social platform. Not yet, we are tracking social, video, and display. And the first one that we are having data is on Facebook. So I was sharing with you some data which has connected. So alone in May, we see that over 5,000 advertisers on the Facebook network. Interestingly, out of that 5,000 advertisers, we don't see a lot. We see very few brands advertisement. But the biggest advertiser are the e-commerce platform, like Tiki, Shopee, Lazada, Sendor, for example. But it's also very interesting that, the way we define what we call the marketplace. So 95% of the advertising on Facebook are marketplace. So it's not, brand building, it's not, awareness. So we see a few brands, especially Samsung, advertising on Facebook, but not so much. When we're looking through the top 10s, we don't see big brands there. So probably there's a few things that is a bit of, because it's user content. It's also a unique Vietnamese market. When Facebook, in fact, is a marketplace for us, not just a social network like elsewhere in the world. So that's why I think that when we're considering choosing the media vehicle, you also need to looking at local cultural nuances to understand the market.
Thank you, Mai, and that really nicely summarized our discussion today. We talk about the importance of the brand safety, what is the framework and approach that brands and platforms that they're following, some of the best practices, guideline, and how we measure the brand safety once we implemented it. From Zhao's and also mentioned about the outcomes and how everything is linking to the ROI and also the brand performance. And in the last question, we talk about the future of the brand safety, and Mai has shared a lot of the very insightful, great ideas. So we heard a lot of the great idea insight, and I really want to just extend my appreciation to the panelists today and also the audience who have taken the time out to join this session with us. And I hope you will be, leave this event at least taking a few of these great insights with you today. Thank you. Thanks. Because we still have 4 minutes, so let's. I just want to go through all the questions here and then see if there's any question that haven't been addressed previously. So I think for the first one, yeah, for the first and the second one, we actually have already addressing the our conversation already. I guess Zhao or Ngo, you want to share a little bit more about, like, are there any specific tool or third-party partners that you guys are working with currently for a brand safety measure?
Maybe I tackle on the question about what Cho Tot are using to build on brand engagement. So actually, brand engagement is, of course, one certain part is brand safety, and another thing is about the way we build the algorithm to recommend and engage with the users based on their profiles and based on their behaviors on our platform in the prior period of time. So that's one we will we build it in-house in order to save the cost and also to leverage the talents of the data captured in our place as well. So that's one thing. And keyword here is personalization and ad recommendation.
Thank you. And I think most of these questions has been addressed. There's one question: should we track brand safety by contextual of the articles or only by the keyword? I think this question has been raised by the audience because previously Zhao has mentioned that 5 steps Sanofi is taking. And can you share a little bit more? Like, currently, are you only using keyword exclusion or any other tactics other than that? Like, do you track content by the PR articles as well? Like, how do you, apart from the contextual keyword targeting, like, do you use any content exclusion or topic exclusion to ensure the brand safety?
To be honest, I'm a little bit a dependent person from brand point of view. So just like I mentioned, number one, the biggest help is coming from a credible publisher, because they already, can manage already their inventory. So they have 3 types of inventory, if I'm not mistaken, like expanded inventory, a middle layer, and the most stringent one, most typical one, and a lots of filter is the limited inventory. So that limited inventory will have to filter everything, like profanity, nudity, sensitive topic, everything there already. So we only place our ad within that limited inventory first. The second one is to also add another layer to do a manual filter from media agency to ensure that there's some sensitive keyword that the system might not be able to filter in local language, just like Jima mentioned previously. So we also have to make sure that it's actually in place. I also received a question, if I'm not mistaken, that there is someone asking that outside of Google, Facebook, are we considering another, and TikTok, right? Do we considering another platform? The thing is, their consideration is always there, right? Because at the end of the day, we're doing business, and we have to make sure that our investment have a good return on investment. But at the same time, we have to align with our brand safety commitment. So as long as you guys proven that, you can deliver a very high brand safety score, we have no problem, like exploring another platform. So for example, like GDN, right? So from Google, now they release, I'm not sure if this is an advertisement session for Google, but Google, they have new service called DV360, right? Now they can track brand safety on GDN. And this is, and with that, I'm happy to explore.
Thank you, Zhao. So I guess most of the question has been addressed, and if not, given the time interest and everyone is probably hungry this time already, so I would like to end the session here today. And then thank you again, all the panelists and also the audience. Thanks for your time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, all the panelists and the moderators. So we gain a lot of knowledge from the discussion. So everybody's now is officially closed the morning session of our event today. And right now, we would like to invite all of you to join us at the lunch in the next ballroom at this side of me and on the right side of you. Just go out of our ballroom and then turn left. So we have the guide to guide you move to the lunch ballroom. So once again, thank you so much and see all of you at 1:15 p.m. today. Thank you and enjoy your lunch. Và thưa các anh chị thân mến, ban tổ chức cũng xin được trân trọng kính mời tất cả các anh chị chúng ta sẽ cùng dùng bữa trưa ngày hôm nay. Ở phía khán phòng kế bên khán phòng của chúng ta thì các anh chị đi ra cửa và chúng ta sẽ rẽ trái và sẽ có các bạn hướng dẫn các anh chị di chuyển đến phòng ăn trưa các anh chị nha. Xin cảm ơn.
Cool.